Hello everyone. I hope you're all doing good. Can you hear me? Because I was having some trouble with my microphone a few seconds ago. Type 1 if you can hear me. It's all going well. Okay. Let me adjust that music real quick, shall I? How's that sound? That sound a little better? If that sounds good, hit 1. Hit 2 if you think it's not good enough. Good, good. I like the sound of that so far. Getting started in just a few seconds. Let's, you know what? Why delay? Let's just start it right now. Let's do it live. Yeah. Let's do it live. Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to another one of these things. I'm back here. I'm back in the room, as it were, to do some streaming. Solo this time. Here to hunt some wizards. Among other things, of course. Show of hands. Who here has seen the new Marvel Rivals? Everything? Have you all seen the Marvel Rivals update? Because I have feelings on that. I was just looking at that before I got on. A lot of feelings about the new team-ups and all that. Excited to see Jubilees being added in. I might try to put a small video out about Jubilee this week, potentially. But this month's going to be mainly focused on the big projects I have coming up. Good cup of something there. Yeah, no, so Jubilee's added, but I gotta say, with Marvel Rivals, I'm a little disappointed. They keep showcasing these awesome villains and then just don't add them into the game. Why don't you add them into the game? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not do that? Why would you not want to incorporate those bad guys in the game? Oh, quick little showcase here. Let me share this real quick on the channel as well. Hey, 1 second. So, friend of the channel, Andrew Bluette, has a new video out about Halo, the Halo series. I may be showing up in that. I just shared it on my channel just now, on my comment section, whatever, and the whole big, I don't know, what do you call it, journal, live blog? Who knows what it is, on my YouTube channel. So you got that coming for you if you want to see that. So it'll be kind of fun to watch. But this, let's talk about Marvel Rivals for a second. Let's talk about Marvel Rivals for a second. Marvel Rivals. I can speak English, I promise you that. Wow, it is one of those days. So I gotta say right now, let me turn up this music too. Gotta say, kind of hyped for Jubilee a little bit.
Clear the way! It's time for the Big Bang!
Kind of happy.
Life energy, yes!
Kind of happy. Like, here's the thing. I do like playing support. Let me go back to the big glamour shot right here. I do like playing support. Not a huge fan of her costume, if I'm being honest with you. I don't love that. I feel it might be a little, a bit exploitative, I think. You know? I don't know. Just a little bit. But beyond that, I dig this whole look. It's really cool. It's quite something. Very 90s. I agree. I like her abilities. They seem really fun. But I'm a little surprised by so the main tease. Let me bring that up real quick. Where's the season 9? Here we go. So the season 9 trailer sets up a great villain and then just stabs him in his first scene. It really sucks. I kind of want to see more of that.
You sure you want to do this, big
Look at this.
The judges of worlds bestowed a title.
There's Jubilee right here being all edgy and cool. So that's kind of fun. I like that. So we set this whole thing up. Apocalypse has this whole big thing.
Is in the hands of mutant kind. For if even gods
We have this whole big thing with Apocalypse. He's looking badass. Doing his whole AB Unit 1 ascension thing.
the 7 lights shall guide the way.
Looks pretty badass, right?
In the name of Apocalypse, the world shall be.
And then they just stab him in the back. Look at that. Look at this. It's Apocalypse. They just stab Apocalypse. And that's supposed to kill him, apparently. Like really? Like they set up this amazing build-up. I skipped around and obviously didn't show the whole thing. But they showed this badass opening for Apocalypse, him ascending, his strength. You get a sense of how strong and powerful Apocalypse is. And then they just stab him in the back. Just stab him in the back. Why not? Sure. It's like, yeah, I mean, and they're going to do, it's the Hood who stabs him. They're going to bring the Hood in, who, I mean, personally.
Mutants, gods, Nira. No one beats the Hood.
And the Hood's fine. Like, he's okay. But, like, I like an oddball choice. The Hood is a really underrated villain. But, like, and yeah, his ties to Mephisto and all that. So it's like Apocalypse versus Mephisto, that whole thing. But, like, you build up this great villain, amp him up, showcase him as this intense, undeniably powerful entity. And then you kill him off. Like, really? Okay, sure. Sure. He's kind of cute. Yeah, okay, fine, maybe. But I mean, it's Marvel Rivals. Every character is well designed. But still, it's like you go with the Hood when you could have had, you know, friggin' Apocalypse, you know, one of the most powerful badass mutants of all time. Like, and Marvel Rivals keeps introducing these really cool villains, like just consistently badass villains, and then just axes them off. Just gets rid of them. Like a couple seasons ago, it was Kingpin. And Kingpin, fully designed in game. Awesome character. Don't do anything with him. Null. Would be hard to have him show up at the game immediately, but still, cool fight. Dracula would be fun. They add him in as a boss fight in the PvE mode, but still. I don't know. Would be fun to actually have Dracula be in the game. Don't know what to tell you. So that's where we're at right now, sadly. We're at that stage where we're like, okay, we're getting the Hood, we're getting Jubilee. We got like a lot of updates to the game. Like there's a lot of things that were added, but I'm kind of impressed. Doctor Doom is a boss. Doctor Doom is rumored to be showing up in a couple seasons from now to coincide with Doomsday's release. That's the current rumor. Because the rumor for next season is we're getting Nightcrawler and Gore the God Butcher, which I think is cool. I love both characters. Love Nightcrawler, as many people on the channel know. I love Nightcrawler. Love Gore. Great character, Gore. And I love Jubilee as a character. It's just the Hood I don't give a shit about. You know, so it's like, okay, that's cool. But he's not even like enough of one of those oddball choices where you're like, ooh, that's unusual. Like, for example, Marvel Tokon, whatever, they put in Carnage as a character. And that's like an underhand, that's an under not really expected choice. I like that. Is Nightcrawler your favorite X-Men? I would say probably up there. I have a hard time choosing an all-time favorite X-Men. I feel like Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde, of course Wolverine. You gotta love Wolverine. They occupy kind of like a trifecta in my brain where I kind of go back and forth on which one I like the most at a given time. Love those three in general, though. Nightcrawler, though, especially, I think is really interesting and underutilized outside of the comics. So is Kitty Pryde, honestly, for that matter. But still. Super chat coming in?
At user_225_CCC super chatted $4.99. My red pill moment was when someone pointed out that Rick and Morty fight scenes are better animated than Invincible's. Because how do you let that happen?
Oh, I can't argue with you on that one. I think the fight scenes have more tension in Invincible, but, you know. Yeah, no. Invincible has some weird animation. It's very, it's a little stiff. The designs are nice, but the coloring is very flat. And there is some good... I think it's fair to say, they are moments where where all the budget goes into those, like, singular high-impact visuals. But, like, on average, the fights aren't necessarily, like, super well animated. But... also, you know, I think that Rick and Morty gets more money per episode. And the designs are probably easier to animate because it's so simple, I'd say.
At Olivia_Williams_purple_fairy super chatted $1.96. My favorite X-Man is X-23, Laura Kinney.
X-23 is up there too. I love X-23. She's a great character, iconic. I love how it's another case like with Harley Quinn, where the cartoon created a character, and in the comics were like, this character's so great, let's bring her in. And he did so many cool things with her in the comics. Loved her in Logan, a highlight in Deadpool and Wolverine. And going through the whole Jubilee vampire arc, I kind of forgot there were some good moments between X-23 and Jubilee, honestly. I like those bits. They're really cute. And they have really good quality. Miss Sinister would be great for Marvel Rivals. I agree. Sinister would be great for Marvel Rivals. So would Kingpin. So would Apocalypse. So would Dracula. Bring in the characters you've already introduced as villains, like they did with Ultron. That was fun. People like Ultron, you know? There's a lack of real villains in Marvel Rivals, and that bugs me. But as it goes. Yeah. So let's do Kitty Pryde's great. Kitty Pryde's a really great character, especially like how she's evolved over time, like really grown in many ways. Ultron is just a sexy voice. Sure. Kamala Khan would be great for more rivals too, I'm not gonna lie. But I am happy we're getting Gore and Nightcrawler. Those are two characters I really like. Yeah, Jubilee's Chinese American, not Japanese American. That's a misconception. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about. Okay, so one thing I want to talk before we get into the main topic of the real life fake wizard, I want to share with you a video from a channel I had kind of forgotten about, but may have the worst review of Obsession I've seen in a very long time. Oops, super check coming in.
At Koarizarich super chatted $3. Nightcrawler, Gambit, and Magento are my top 3.
Magento? Jesus. Talk to speech. What is up with that? No, Magneto is awesome. I love Magneto. Magneto is one of those great characters. I think he's just absolutely fantastic. I love Magneto. Okay, so here's something I want to bring up right here. How many of you guys are familiar with the channel Alex Myers? Like a big channel on YouTube, apparently. I was mostly unaware of Alex Myers outside of seeing his thumbnails show up on occasion. But I gotta say, not impressed with his review on Obsession here. Not impressed with his review on Obsession. And this is a massive channel. It's over 4 million subs. So I almost feel worried about like pissing off his fans, because I'm sure they're hardcore. But I gotta say, I hate this video. This is actually one of the worst, one of the worst, I'd say. So, Obsession is obviously a very complicated movie, right? There's a lot going on there. It's very, very complicated. A lot going on in terms of ideas, character, themes. It's a movie that has divided a lot of the movie-going audience, but not a ton. Most people agree. It's fantastic. The division comes in what you think of in terms of the character Bear, who is the main protagonist of the film, what have you. Alex's takes have been teen movies are somewhat accurate, though. Okay, well, it's fine if it's accurate with teen movies, but this is not a teen movie. This is a movie about adults, you know? And it's a movie with complicated ideas.
At Nick Wolf 3885 super chatted $2. I am Magento, master of highlights.
I love that. Great. The master of highlights. Adore that. Anyway, we're not going to watch this whole video because I know people want to see the real life fake wizard, and we'll get to that in a second. But have you seen Remnant 76 new video about him and calling you a grifter? I don't care. If Remnant wants to say shit, he can say shit. That's the thing too with these back and forths online. At a certain point, you got to just cut things loose and just move on with your life. If Remnant wants to circle back and talk about the same video for the next like freaking 5 years, that's on him. I have a life, so I'm not going to do that. How young the actors' Obsession? No, it could have fooled me. They're in their 20s. They're still adults. Like, if you're over the age of 18, you're an adult. In this case, it's about young adolescents. So it's not necessarily like you're dealing with teenagers. They're adults. And they're dealing with adult problems in adult ways. And if they seem immature, it's only because adults are immature. So there you go. But yeah, I'm just going to play a little bit of this real quick.
Warning, this video is an attempt at a good faith, nuanced look at the fictional movie Obsession and the characters therein, which will probably upset some of you for some reason. You know, I don't think...
So here's the thing too, right here. He has this like, oh, it's a good faith interpretation. I'm sure it is good faith. That's not the problem. And we'll get to that in a second.
I've seen the internet freak out about a movie like they have with Obsession. At least not in a long time. Maybe K-pop Demon Hunters was the last time where like everywhere you looked, everyone had an opinion about it. I guess you could say everyone's kind of obsessed. So I knew I had to make a video about it, but like they kept pushing back the VOD release date, because y'all kept on watching it. $750,000 budget, and it made $300 million. One of the biggest indie film success stories of all time. Now, I didn't make a lot of videos about horror stuff, but I mean, a semi-rom-com about a nerdy loser guy who gets the girl at the end. Wow, this sounds like a nice, wholesome movie. But okay, let's check it out. So come along, kids. Let's take a walk.
I feel like I'm coming apart. I think about you all the time, Nikki. When I try not to. You're in every song I listen to.
So you get the vibe.
Marching along as the song fills the air. Gummy bear.
So this is our main character, Bear. Bear is 25, according to the screenplay, and he's never outgrown his awkward high school loser persona, which means he's gonna have a great career one day as an online content creator. Hi there.
Okay, so the vibe that you're getting probably from this is that, yeah, no, it's a rough voice. Yeah, I'm not big on this. I don't like I don't like his style personally. I think it's very like that kind of disingenuous, kind of snarky kind of style, which is fine. And that's all right. We need that. I think the problem is, so he starts addressing this like it's like a YA rom-com movie and doesn't address the horror of anything. So as we go, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
Awesome, do it again.
Yeah, well, they've been pretty popular since we put them out. Everybody wants a wish. Some people don't open them, but the people who do, come back and complain.
Or it does work and it like ruins their lives.
Or they die or wish they were dead.
Ah, yes, the Millennial Special. Rather
At user_225_CCC super chatted $1.99. Will this segment have obsession spoilers?
I'm trying to avoid the spoilers. I'm not gonna go past a certain point because I don't want to spoil people unexpectedly for Obsession because you really should watch it. But the gist of this review is he basically recaps the plot by leaving out some key moments. Now, for those who've seen Obsession, you gotta get the vibe right now. It's very jokey. It's very like silly. He's making jokes between each scene. I want to get to one of the points where he like does something here where it's a little problematic. It's right here.
like when she and Bear kissed earlier.
Yeah, so like there's moments where he shows the horror, like some of the scary bits right here, or like the bits where it's like you see the characterization. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without spoiling details. So basically, the way this is written and presented, he is it's basically apology for the character Bear. If you've seen Obsession, the character Bear does a lot of stuff that's unethical. And for most of this review, Alex is defending Bear's actions. Kind of going like, in fairness, at this point in the movie, give the context, but he's leaving some key scenes out
At
that
Nick
completely
Wolf
contradict the story.
3885 super chatted $2. Yippee. My fav VTuber in the lower right corner.
Who's that? Alex Life? I don't think I've seen Alex Life. Okay, I've not seen that one. But the point is that he does a lot of apology for Bear's actions. Without spoiling what happens in Obsession, some of his actions are done under some very odd circumstances, we'll say. So, okay, I don't want to spoil the movie, so I'm not going to, because some people haven't seen it yet. And you guys came here for Real Life Fake Wizard. But if you really want to see a video that really screws up with Obsession, watch that one. I am kind of hesitant to show you the whole thing because, again, I don't want to spoil Obsession. I kind of want to have a crowd in the audience who has seen Obsession so they can follow along. So there you go. Yeah. Is he a chud? I have no idea. I don't think he's a chud. I think he's just, doing his thing. Anyway. Yeah, everyone go and watch Obsession. That's the point. Then go and watch Alex's review and tell him he's wrong. So, Real Life Fake Wizard is a channel who I'm still trying to figure out what to think about this guy. I think a lot of his videos are extremely chuddy. There you go. He identifies as a chud. There we go. He basically tells everyone how all the organizations that are making media are bad from a satanic perspective in some cases. He believes that Angel Studios isn't Christian enough, which, I mean, I agree with, but not for the reasons he does. He thinks video game consoles are evil, basically. He talks about access media, which is a red flag right there. Anyone who ever says access media, it's always a red flag how they frame it. He's all well dressed as a wizard. Yeah, exactly. All well dressed as a wizard.
At Itsuboy562 super chatted $3.09. There are sympathetic villains and unsympathetic protagonists. Magneto is the former, Bear is the latter.
Agreed. Magneto's very sympathetic. Bear is empathetic. An empathetic character is one you can understand what they feel and you get what they're thinking. But it's not sympathetic. In fact, it makes you hate them more, usually. Whereas Magneto is empathetic and sympathetic. You know what he's feeling, you get the vibe, and you feel bad for him, even when he's doing some horrible shit. But anyway, I digress. This is not satire, by the way. This guy is not satire. He might have been a joke at one point, but I think he takes himself too seriously now. Okay, so we have two videos we want to take a look at. Beyond his hundreds of anti-Sony, anti-Xbox vids, we have two vids here about adaptation and about the culture war being over. And I think both are interesting. I've not seen them yet. We're going with a blind watch of both. And yeah, he really does dress like a wizard. That's his whole gimmick. That's his costume, which is fine. Hey, listen, a costume's a costume. That's cool. You know, whatever. But let's take a look.
Hello,
let's start.
I'm a real-life fake wizard.
You can tell we're in for a great start already. So, any questions before we get going? Let's ask them now. Forever hold your peace before we really dive into this, you know? Who hates... I'm interested in the comments. What is Axis Media? So Axis Media is in reference to mainstream journalist groups. So, for example, your Varieties, your Hollywood Reporter, the mainstream trades that get access to the stars. The term access media is usually used as a derogatory fashion, but nowadays influencers have just as much of an impact on movie reporting anyway. So it's like the idea of access media getting this elite kind of coverage is limited, you know? Is this AI? I don't think this is AI. I think this is just like a photoshopped background from The Hobbit. There is some AI, I think, used in his videos, if I recall correctly, but I don't remember distinctly what it was, if it is even there. It wouldn't shock me. There are a lot of recycled assets to his videos, though. Subscribed to this guy for like a month ago. I'm curious in his content since I never actually watched it since. Yeah, no, hopefully we find out. Okay. Cool. So let's just keep diving in.
Adaptations are the death of the human spirit. Yes, you remember playing telephone in grade school? Well, regardless, here's the premise. A bunch of kids sit in a circle. One kid whispers a sentence into the next kid's ear, then that kid whispers what he thinks he heard into the next kid's ear, and that continues around the circle of kids, all whispering what they perceive is the same message to the next kid until it gets back to the first kid. Now, there are rules to this game, however. The kid whispering the message can only say it once, so the listener really has to try their best to fill in what the message was if they missed something when they heard it. But it doesn't matter. See, by the time the message has gone around the whole circle, there's a great chance that the message has changed, either because kids along the way didn't quite understand what the previous kid was saying, or perhaps there was a silly goose of a kid in there who thought it would be very funny to change the message completely. When you're 8 years old, this is...
Okay, so the comparison right now is that adapting a work is like a game of telephone. Not really. I mean, unlike a game of telephone, the source is usually concrete and there, and you can always go back and reference it. It's not like you get one time to hear it and then it's gone forever. You don't like read a book and then it evaporates into the ether. You have to repeat the whole book to someone. That's not how it works. That being said, though, the idea that a bad actor can deliberately misinterpret a work, yeah, that happens. But that's not like not like telephone. You're not like repeating a changed message and there's nothing you can go back to and check. You know, that's not quite what it is. So that's already a very misleading kind of analysis. I don't think that really is how it works. Also, I never played telephone with rules. I barely played telephone. Did you? Failed attempt at cloning. That's fair enough. He is a failed clone of Matt Walsh. That's unfair to the real-life fake wizard. He has more charisma than Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh is a vacuum of charisma. This guy at least has a sense of style. Do you think Matt Walsh would ever, even as a joke, dress up as a wizard? No way. No. Alright, it gives the fake wizard more points. I'll give him credit where it's due. Yeah, telephone is remember The Office? Oh yeah, remember The Office?
At the Critical Painter super chatted 34 cents. Come on, Argentina. World champions again.
Go Argentina. Heck yeah.
At Starry Sparrow super chatted $2. Hey Ant. Give me misused analogy for 100.
There you go. There you go. That's what this is. A very misused analogy. And it's troubling too because this is the beginning of the video. This is how he starts his argument. With an analogy that doesn't quite make sense all that much. And that sucks. You know, that's whatever. And look, it's not the end of the world if you have a failed analogy. That happens sometimes. Shit goes wrong. Shit goes south. But the problem is the analogy doesn't even make remote sense given the subject matter. And none of that reflects the death of the human spirit. It's just, in fact, if anything, that's the most human thing possible. Making errors and still improvising along the way regardless to find some type of kernel of truth. Thank you, member, for 20 months there, Angel and Gaming. Thank you so much. Who is this DM wannabe? I just woke up from a nap. This is the real-life fake wizard. He is a content creator online. Pretty big audience. For better or worse, he is getting very popular. The algorithms picked him up a lot. And I think it's worth discussing his ideas because I feel like they are worth arguing against. But we'll see.
It's fun. It's a great distraction from classwork, and for me personally, it's a core memory from the 4th grade. But as an adult, it's not funny anymore. And this game of telephone is being played not by children, but by millionaire and billionaire executives playing not with a silly message, but with stories that define the human experience. You see, all of human history has been perceived and revered through the skills of storytelling. And today, stories that contain the values and morals of what defines good and bad are being thrown around in ways that dramatically alter what the original message of the story was.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Stories capturing the essence of good and evil. That's some stories, not all stories. For example, there is no sense of extreme good or evil in Jane Austen's work. There are bad guys in that work who act in a disorderly, cruel fashion. There are abuses of power. But to say that by adapting Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice differently, we're eliminating the sense of good and evil from the story, that doesn't really matter all that much.
At Nick Wolf 3885 super chatted $5. Adaptations are bad, said the man talking in front of a green screen scene from The Office, which is an adaptation of a UK show. _ant_crim.
To say nothing of the fact that, he's heavily lifting from Lord of the Rings, which itself was adapted multiple times, and indeed is Tolkien's adaptation of myths and legends from his childhood. Just saying. The thing also is adaptation can come from a corporate place, sure, but that is not about the process of adaptation. That is a corporation doing something that's not great. Having Stitch from Lilo and Stitch as the first example of an adaptation you show is a choice, considering it's Disney remaking their own property. It's the same corporations who made it redoing it. We can talk about the individual elements of that adaptation as an adaptation, but when we're talking about stories that have existed for centuries and your citation is Lilo and Stitch, I don't know, it's a little bit of a weird choice, I'm just saying.
In 2025, about 73% of the domestic box office came from existing intellectual properties. 8 of the top 10 highest grossing films of the year were sequels, remakes, or franchise installments. Now, whether each of those films was good or bad in isolation is not the point.
None of those are adaptations, though. That's not what an adaptation means. If it's an existing intellectual property, it could be a sequel. Some are adaptations, sure, but not all. And that's a little weird to conflate the two.
But more so, as we look at 2025, 2026, 2024, 23, 22, and so on, all the films and shows and properties that generate interest, buzz, discussion, and money are all whispers of whispers of whispers.
Untrue. Obsession was a massive hit this year. That's an original idea. You can make the argument it takes the same plot as a Tales from the Crypt episode, sure. It has a similar plot as Tales from the Crypt episode, sure. And it itself is an adaptation of the Monkey's Paw story, sure. But it's still an original story that's not a direct adaptation of anything. It's inspired by other works, not an adaptation. So right there, when one of the biggest films of the year is an original IP, I got to question your angle there,
Every pass and every adaptation loses a little more of the original. And the original is what matters most, because it was the rawest form of the message the original creator intended. Throughout.
Not always true. Sometimes they're better adaptations than the original. There are a few examples of this. I would say that Forrest Gump the movie is better than Forrest Gump the book by a lot. They're completely different ideas and themes and structures, but still better story. I would say that an adaptation like, say, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, is very different from The Odyssey, but still a great film, still a great adaptation, very different.
At Starry Sparrow super chatted $10. A good adaptation captures the themes and spirit of the media while using the strength of the medium.
Exactly.
Wait Till Brother compares Ovid and Homer's interpretations of similar cultures.
Oh yeah, 100%. Ovid and Homer both had redos of the same myths and changed them drastically. In fact, adaptations of those myths are more popular today than the original iteration of those myths. Yeah, Fight Club, another great example. Yeah, American Psycho, also a great example where they took ideas of the book, from the book, changed them up, and made them more palatable in a way that's actually very compelling and funny. But yeah, no. So Old Boy, for example, the adaptation of Old Boy is widely seen as better than the original manga. The manga is great too, but the adaptation put a lot more into it that made it feel like a Greek tragedy rather than just a crime revenge story.
At Any Profit super chatted $5. Whining about Hollywood not being original? How original?
Exactly. And yes, I do see the example. Stanley Kubrick, The Shining. Stephen King to this day does not like the Shining adaptation that Kubrick did because it strays too far from his book. However, that adaptation is in itself a great work of fiction. It's a great example of horror media and does a lot to be extremely effective in terms of scares and extremely effective in terms of telling a compelling narrative unique to itself.
At Olivia_Williams_purple_fairy super chatted $1.96. The Thing, Shawshank Redemption.
The Thing is a great remake, changes the ideas of the original film, which itself is an adaptation of the novella Who Goes There, I think it's called, or What Goes There, I forget the exact name of it, by Campbell. Great work. Shawshank Redemption is one of the greatest films ever made, based on a Stephen King novella. Absolutely fantastic. There are great adaptations out there that have been made by studios. There is anyone who says the original is the best always. You're inviting the counter argument, which is the few examples where that's not true. Now, I've mentioned this multiple times. One of the great stories that is heavily inspired, that was adapted multiple times and adapted poorly, is Earthsea. Earthsea was adapted multiple times very poorly, but the adaptations all prove one thing: how great the original work is. The Ring has no book plot. Yeah, the original Ring was a weird book, but the adaptation in Japan, Ringu, or Ring, I guess.
At Kowarizarich
really good movie.
super chatted $2. Forbidden Planet for the Tempest.
Forbidden Planet, yeah, great example. And Forbidden Planet is also noteworthy because it inspired Star Trek. The structure of Forbidden Planet, with Leslie Nielsen as this Captain Kirk type character, it heavily inspired Roddenberry when making Star Trek. Yeah, the original series, 100%. Star Trek's not an adaptation, but yeah, Annihilation, History of Violence. I'm seeing a few really good examples in the comments. The Mist, oh yeah. Wizard of Oz, yeah, it's also true. Yeah, a lot of good ones. Yeah. Don't Call Me Shirley. Yeah, if you want to be honest with it, Airplane is kind of an adaptation of, what was it? What was the movie called? It's like verbatim the same script.
At Itsuboy 562 super chatted $3.09. If you'd count it as an adaptation, The Backrooms just recently is also getting a lot of positive attention.
I would count it as an adaptation, or at least inspired by this pretty much a public common. It's kind of a common, would be a common license story. I'm not even sure. Edge of Tomorrow, great adaptation also. Really different from the original light novels. Starship Troopers still inspires discussion about how different of an adaptation it is. So yeah, you can go on and on about this. There's a lot of really complicated examples of adaptation that do not conform to this. Oh yeah, this comment right here. You're totally right.
At DB-Do5L super chatted $2, Jaws. Must Be Said is also an adaptation.
I say Jaws the movie is better than Jaws the book. Peter Benchley had a lot of subplots that made me hate
At
the
Starry
characters.
Sparrow
I
super
love the
chatted
characters in Jaws the
$10.
film.
To elaborate on Ovid's metamorphoses,
Mhm.
it drastically changed the interpretations. There's always been culture shift. Even Demeter and Persephone changed so much. The biblical flood was copied.
Yeah, oh yeah. Biblical flood, and the biblical flood itself is itself a copy. If you go with the Epic of Gilgamesh, that story is the same thing as Noah's flood, just older than the Bible. Yeah, 100%. There's so many examples of not just good adaptations, but great adaptations that predate, change everything, and usually for intentions. There's always been agendas in drafting certain things. One example of this is the Poetic Edda, right? Which compiled and adapted many of the Norse myths and legends that had collected over time in the northern part of Europe. These myths were oral traditions originally that were transcribed by monks and all that, and friars. However, they were also reframed through a Christian observational lens. Even though they tried to maintain the integrity of the myths and legends, it was still done through the framework of Christians looking at a different culture. And who knows what that impacted? You know? So, there you go.
Throughout most of human history, adaptations were considered to be ways of translating stories.
Wrong again. Sorry.
At Tomoshow 7212 super chatted $5. The wizard's greatest skill is only include examples that provide his point and ignore the mountain of examples that go against it.
Well, you see, the problem is he may be a wizard, but when I roll my characters in D&D, I usually roll up warlocks. I like them a little bit more. Those chaotic little gremlins that throw a monkey wrench into the whole working of everything. So yeah, he may be a wizard with his rules, but I break those rules by showing how insubstantial they truly are. All joking aside, yeah, no, in broad strokes, though, I get what he's trying to say at this point in the game. There are a lot of corporations that do a lot of shitty adaptations. Undeniably so. I'd be a fool to say otherwise. But to say the process of adaptation itself is the problem, when the obvious issue is that these adaptations just fucking suck, I don't have to tell you, man. Something's not adding up. Want to play Warlock? Warlocks are fun. Play Warlocks. More Warlocks in D&D games or Pathfinder games, whatever.
To reach new audiences while honoring the source material, but today...
No, not always. Not always. I would say, depending on how much you stretch the definition of an adaptation, there is, of course, the discussion of Philip Pullman and C.S. Lewis. The Narnia series is regarded as one of the first great works of fantasy literature. C.S. Lewis wrote Christian Apologia. The works are essentially how the will of God, as he perceived it, fits into this framework of magic and whimsy. Philip Pullman hated that and wrote an antithesis to that, that being his Dark Materials, which is kind of reframing the methodology and structure of the Narnia stories via an atheist kind of worldly lens, an anti-God lens. There's no respect for the original work there. It's a counter-argument in many ways.
Today, modern adaptation means the death of legacy for the original creator and the source material.
The death of legacy? Okay, first off, and the original creator. Okay, so The Backrooms was recently made by Kane Parsons, right? Kane Parsons did the original Backrooms shorts that became popular on YouTube. How is he adapting his own work at the behest of a studio system, mind you? The death of the author in his own work. I'm waiting. That's a huge claim to make, and you need extremely huge evidence to back it up. Let's see what he does.
Well, with that introduction, let's take a look at some examples, shall we? The Punisher One Last Kill came out May 12, 2026. It is a continuation of John Barenthal's Netflix Punisher, which ran from 2017 to 2019, which itself spun out of the second season of the Netflix Daredevil show in 2016, which was adapting the Punisher comics. So that's a copy of a copy of a copy.
It's not a copy of a copy of a copy, dude. It's an adaptation of the comics. It's not a copy of a copy of a copy. It's one adaptation in multiple parts. That's not a copy of a copy of a copy. It's one duplication. It's one recreation of the comics. So, no, you're already wrong.
Of a copy. 4 copies deep, and we haven't even mentioned the 2 Punisher movies that came before any of that. And it's the same exact thing with Daredevil Born Again. It's the Disney revival of the Netflix Daredevil, which adapted the comic, learning from the 2004 Daredevil with what not to do with the Netflix adaptation. Daredevil is 4 levels deep in adaptation.
Buddy, no. It's just a different adaptation. I gotta question your math skills there, buddy. That's not how adaptation works. They are engaged. What do you think? Like all the Dracula adaptations are? Do you think the Dracula film from 1931? It's an adaptation of the stage play, which is an adaptation of the book. That's 2 levels deep, right? It's an adaptation of an original, right? You're having an MCU show, which is an adaptation of the Marvel Comics. It's an adaptation of the original. It is not a continuation of the 2004 Daredevil show, which is totally disconnected. It's not a continuation of the 3 Punisher films, not 2 Punisher films. Don't forget Dolph Lundgren from the 90s. I know you always do. Or did you forget the Ray Stevenson one? You forgot one of them, I'm sure. You didn't forget Thomas Jane, I know that, but you forgot one of the first or the last one, I guarantee. But no, the problem is that you look at all these different things. Frankenstein from 1931, adaptation of the stage performance of Frankenstein, which added in Fritz and all the electronic equipment that they drew from in that film. Still an adaptation of the book, though. All of these are different perspectives of one greater whole. They may not be necessarily a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, like you say. It is a adaptation is an adaptation of one work. And then there's another adaptation of that same work. It is not stacked. They do not buff or build on each other. It's separate.
At Starry Sparrow super chatted $5. The Good Place takes inspo from No Exist in Religion, and it's one of the best comedies I've seen.
Exactly. Heavily inspired by No Exit, which is a great play.
At Olivia_Williams_purple_fairy super chatted $1.96. His logic skills are underground.
Truly, he has a dizzying intellect. Quote another fancy movie.
At Crazy Kaiser super chatted $5. I feel like taking this logic to its conclusion. Each subsequent comic is a copy of the first issue. This is just a wrong way to look at things.
Exactly. I mean, hell, really, The Punisher is just a remake of Death Wish. I'm not going to make that joke. Actually, what came first, Death Wish or The Punisher? Death Wish came out 1974. Punisher first appearance 1974. Okay. But I'm assuming that The Punisher came out first before the movie came out. So I'm going to say that's probably came first. But yeah, there you go. So Death Wish is an adaptation of The Punisher. It's actually, Death Wish is an adaptation of a book, which is a whole other discussion right there.
At Koarizarich super chatted $5. I would what this guy would call the different runs of the same series. Are they copying each other?
Yeah.
Was the only X-Men run the very first one?
Yeah, Chris Claremont was really ripping off Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
At Zypher 8677 super chatted $2. So I guess Nosferatu is 200 plus layers of adaptation?
Oh, that's a whole... Don't even get started on Nosferatu. Nosferatu is a remake of a fake remake based on the play, based on the book. Oh, based on the Spanish flu. Of the Black Plague. Yeah, that's a whole bunch of layers deep in that one. Kidding? You kidding? No freaking way. Okay.
And by now, no one is watching this show, and it is truly terrible. Star Trek Starfleet Academy isn't a continuation.
Hang on. So you have nothing to say about it? What do you mean no one saw it? That's actually not... So wait a second. He went on that whole tangent about adaptation, and he didn't even have comments on the fucking show. He was just saying all this shit. And there was no statement to be made. Starfleet Academy. This show got unfairly targeted by a lot of these groups. Like, Starfleet Academy was absolutely serviceable. Was it the greatest show of all time? No. Was it the greatest Star Trek show ever? Not really. Was it totally fine and got an obscene amount of hate behind it? Yeah, same with The Acolyte. They're just fine. They're okay. They're not the best. They're not the worst. They're fine. They're just all right. They're just the new thing people want to hate on. This is all stuff from the last couple of months is what he's doing.
Of Star Trek, so much as it's an adaptation of the idea of Star Trek. It
Okay, can you explain that one?
Is the brand in name only, and what is on screen is anything but Star Trek. And then you've got Rings of...
Oh, that's just it. Oh, we're just gonna say shit today. Okay. It's not an it's not a continuation, it's an adaptation of the idea of Star Trek. Gonna back that one up, buddy? Bro, what the fuck? No, you can't just say shit like that. You gotta validate it. You gotta continue the thought, you know? You can't just say, oh, it's an adaptation of the brand of Star Trek, but is nothing like Star Trek. I'm like, okay. Elaborate. Elaborate on that one. Tell us why. Use your big boy words to continue the thought from there.
At the Great Visitor super chatted $2. Them's fightin' words. Star Wars Acolyte is great.
I cannot say I think it's great. I can say it's, it's all right. It's good. It's all right. The Acolyte has problems, I think. I don't love it. But I think it has some high points. I think a second season would have really added on to it, I think, Yeah, this guy seems very lazy with his points. Yeah, he's not really articulating them very thoroughly is the problem. Anyway, back to this.
Power, which is a great example because the people making it told you how they perceive the relationship between themselves and the source material. The showrunner Patrick McKay went to The Hollywood Reporter and said their Sauron is complexly evil, like Tony Soprano or Walter White. He said season 1 is Batman Begins and season 2 is their Dark Knight. His co-showrunner said their arc was inspired by the Satan from Milton's Paradise Lost. Oh, and there's a literal Breaking Bad writer on the staff. So let me add it all up for you. This billion-dollar Tolkien adaptation is Tolkien plus Walter White plus Tony Soprano plus Batman plus Milton. It's an adaptation on top of an adaptation. There are 5 Halloween costumes stacked on top of each other.
That's not what that fucking means, you moron. Jesus Christ.
At Balthazar 228 super chatted $5. What's real-life fake wizard's profession? Stand-up philosopher. Oh, a BS artist.
That's the one. That's the one it is. Jesus Christ. Okay. Wizard. Mr. Wizard. May I call you Mr. Wizard? Look, come here. Come here a second. All right. Listen, I got to instill upon you a specific idea that's really important that you have to understand before we continue this discussion. Are you listening? Get your ear a little closer. Chat. Put your ear by the microphone, all right? Or by the audio bits, right? Come closer. When you compare something to something else, that does not mean you are adapting that something. If someone who worked on Breaking Bad works on your show is not, in fact, an adaptation of Breaking Bad. You're a fucking moron. Sorry, I had to say that. Sorry. That's not what any of those words mean. At all, actually.
At Olivia_Williams_purple_fairy super chatted $4.92. That's not how it works. Every piece of art is inspired by something else, doesn't make them adaptation that man is the personification of stupidity.
Exactly.
At Itzyboy562 super chatted $3.09. Bro fails to realize that he is just an adaptation of his father, and his father before him. Now repeat like 2570x times until we return to Monk.
Yeah, exactly. Return to the source material, which is an adaptation of monkeys. We failed.
At StonePhoenix7728 super chatted $5.96. So, anything that is inspired by anything else is an adaptation? Guess literally any art ever made is an adaptation by this guy's standards.
You know what? Let's take it further, right? Legend of Zelda has Ganon, right? Ganon is a giant pig man, which was heavily inspired by the Dungeons and Dragons iterations of the orcs in first edition. First edition orcs were very pig-like in appearance that got popular over in Japan. Dungeons and Dragons orcs are an interpretation of Tolkien's orcs, which are themselves an adaptation of Tolkien's Hobbit goblins, which were reinterpreted, renamed as orcs in the later iterations. And themselves were drawn from various folklore creatures from mythology and folklore. Ergo, it's an adaptation of an adaptation of an adaptation of an adaptation of an original story that was indeed, before we even got to it, adapted by someone else. It's like 10 degrees of separation anxiety adaptation game going on here. Jesus. I am staggered by these choices. Do you think that the Matrix was an adaptation of the Bible because it deals with, a Messiah figure?
At Lupin the Maelstrom super chatted $2. All non-Mondo SW shows should have been movies, TBH.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you on that one. That's a fair point, I think. But yeah, the math ain't mathin', currently. And we're still very far away from actually understanding what he means by saying adaptation is the death of the human spirit. But given the fact that he doesn't know what adaptation seemed to be, I already got to question things. Also, all of his examples, of the examples he's given, only 2/3 of them are actual adaptations. Star Trek Starfleet Academy is not an adaptation of Star Trek. It's just fucking Star Trek. It's just a sequel to Star Trek, man. I want to tell you.
Other, creating some kind of Lovecraftian horror that is supposed to honor Tolkien's work. None of which does, by the way. And that brings us to James Gunn's Supergirl.
God. Really? I knew they had to get there eventually, Supergirl, but still. Come on, man.
At Balthazar 228 super chatted $5. The writers of the Epic of Gilgamesh be like, hold up a second.
Hold up a second. I got something here. It's an adaptation.
At Lupin the Maelstrom super chatted $2. Addendum, except Andor. That needed 3 more seasons.
Yeah, I would have watched more of Andor in a heartbeat. That was incredible.
At
Love
Stone
Andor.
Phoenix 7728 super chatted $5.96. Every puzzle game ever made is an adaptation of Foraging for Berries. Am I doing this right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Now, again, here's the thing. He's making this video because of Supergirl. Everything before that was just to pretend his argument had merit and was part of a continual idea. But he clearly isn't doing that. We're talking about Supergirl. This video came out the weekend Supergirl came out, right? So let's see what he has to say.
Releasing on June 26th, 2026, which is adapting a comic that was itself openly built on the movie True Grit, with a little John Wick and a little Logan thrown in. So,
A little Logan thrown in. Okay, so let me ask you a question here. Have you read Women of Tomorrow? Like, yeah, the True Grit thing, yeah. But where's Logan?
At user _225_CCC super
Where's
chatted
Logan
$1.99. Uwe Boll versus Tommy Wiseau in an oil wrestling match.
Tommy Wiseau wins, I think. Wiseau would find a way. But no, so Logan, I mean, it's very much True Grit, but to say it is 1-to-1 with True Grit is not accurate. I don't think he's read Woman of Tomorrow. If he did, he would understand why Supergirl doesn't really work as a good adaptation of that work. It leaves out a lot of details, including the ending of the comic, which is drastically different. And you can make an argument about adaptation with that. I know that Craig Gillespie has said he did not look at the visuals of the comic before making his film, which I think was a mistake. I think that would have made the movie a lot better, I think, but I digress. But yeah, this is very not what is going on. I think it's a very strange argument to make. Let's see what he has to say.
True Grit becomes a comic, becomes a...
Here you go.
At Nick Wolf 3885 super chatted $2.
God, that'd be great.
Now I'm picturing Wiseau as Dr. Ian Malcolm.
That'd be something else.
At Balthazar 228 super chatted $5. TTS now has me wanting Tommy Wiseau Joker. Wiseau serious, Lisa.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa. That's how I got these scars, Lisa. That's so terrible. I'm so sorry. But yeah, no. So he's saying that he's trying to imply that being inspired by another work makes it an adaptation of that work. Does that make you an adaptation of every third grader's idea of a cool D&D character? Anyway.
The movie, all to tell us a story of a belligerently drunk version of Kara Danvers who is going to
Card. What? Hang on. Yeah, I mean, not really. Okay, whatever. Belligerently drunk? She's only, like, drinks in a couple scenes. She's really not drunk for most of the movie. I'm trying to think, how many scenes does she actually drink in the whole film? It's really the first few minutes, and then the rest of the film she's not drinking. She gets poisoned at one point. Huh.
Girl boss her way across the galaxy, baby. And look at the rest of what's on the horizon. Star Wars again, Marvel again.
Oh, so he's not going to say anything else about the movie. So he has no idea what happens in the movie. Because if you watch the movie, she's not drunk for most of it. She drinks in like 2 scenes at the beginning. And then never again in the whole film. She's in a bar at one point, but she doesn't really drink in that scene because she does an arm wrestling contest and beats everyone up, but she's not drunk. She's drunk in 2 scenes in the first 15 minutes. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. What a lazy adaptation. What a lazy interpretation of the movie. She's drunk as in the movie as much as she is in the original graphic novel. They both drink mainly at the beginning of the whole story. If you're gonna make a video, at least get the facts of the movie right. It's not that big of a movie. And when does this come out? June 25th. Okay, so he put this video out before Supergirl came out. He put out his video about Supergirl before Supergirl came out. He did not watch the fucking movie before making a video about the movie. He couldn't have, because this video came out the day before Supergirl was in theaters. He couldn't even be bothered to watch the damn movie. And he's going to tell us if it's a good adaptation or not? Jesus. What a lazy attempt at telling the story. What a lazy attempt at making a video. You're not even going to watch the movie or read the comic for that matter?
At StonePhoenix7728 super chatted $5.96. I hope I'm not spamming. Sorry.
You're not spamming.
And his
don't worry.
logic. What should artists' inspirations be? Like, artists should just will things into existence without interacting with anything else ever made?
Exactly. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
At Dagnat3Ardson6121 super chatted $1.99. Fake wizard needs to stick to video game news.
Seriously, this is not your forte. If you're going to talk about adaptation qualities, you got to actually watch the material you're talking about. Discussing differences in adaptation is complicated, right? It's not easy. You got to know what you're doing. And so far, I just don't feel confident in his perspective whatsoever. I don't believe he's even seen half things he's talking about, honestly, because he's not talking about them in any specific details.
And DC again, Toy Story 6, 7, 8, Toy Story Till the End of Time, Super Mario Brothers, again, Hunger Games, again, even though that should have ended. Scream, Scary Movie is even back from the dead. Another...
Scream is not an adaptation of anything. It's an original series of sequels. How does this actually fit in with the discussion of adaptation? Scary Movie is also not an adaptation. It is a parody. Those are different. You can it's a bad parody, but it's still a parody. Also, you're ignoring Obsession.
Minions, another Dune, Jumanji 4, and well, I guess you get the idea. Everything is just a copy of a copy of a copy. Okay.
That's a really reductive way of looking at things, and it's not particularly compelling. Also, you haven't actually illustrated that any of these were copies at all. Like, okay, here's what I'm talking about. A sequel is not if you can say that, here's what I'm trying to get at. Based on his logic, Starfleet Academy is a copy of the original Star Trek. But he also just said that Starfleet Academy is nothing like the original Star Trek. So how can it be a copy if it's not a copy? Your own logic does not add up.
At Olivia_Williams_purple_fairy super chatted $1.96. How often he thinks Dune Messiah was adapted?
I have doubts he's even read Dune. Dune Messiah has only been adapted one at a time. So, as a miniseries.
StonePhoenix7728 super chatted $5.96. Like, I make a lot of music inspired by radio transmissions of old space flights. Am I adapting, therefore distorting the Sputnik, Vostok, or Mercury flights?
Exactly.
Like, TF?
Yeah, exactly. He's not very clear what he's talking about. That's the problem. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He's saying, oh, it's a copy of a copy of a copy. But you have to define what a copy actually is in this context. Because to just say it's an adaptation is not enough. You have to prove it's actually a duplicate. And with his own logic, he's saying these aren't copies. They're infusing different things together. A copy is a clone. Even with his Rings of Power example, Rings of Power, he's saying, has all these different influences infused into it, separate from Tolkien's work. That's not what a copy is. That's a transfusion. You can argue if it's good or not. I would say it has a lot of problems. But to say it's a copy is not accurate. You have to actually dive into what you don't like about it. Being so reductive and so overly general actually makes your argument sound kind of ridiculous, quite honestly.
Okay, but let's dig a little deeper to that, right? Because if we look to scientific analysis, there have been many people before me who've discussed this idea. Do you know who originally discussed the copy of a copy problem? Plato. Book 10 of the Republic, around 375 BC, he says all art is imitation, and imitation is a copy of a copy, twice removed from the truth. And the danger, he says, is deception. It works when the audience mistakes the imitation for the real thing. Then we find Walter Benjamin, a German philosopher in...
That's a big jump from Plato.
At Lupin the Maelstrom super chatted $2. Roger Rabbit's just Bogart in Disney and WB. 0 tenths.
Exactly. And the problem there is that, yeah, the problem is when people confuse fiction for reality. That's a very general statement. Oh, what's going on, Andrew? This guy's background track is Birth by Sleep. Yeah, I just noticed that too. Now you pointed out. By the way, Andrew, I gave you a shout out on the channel before, just so you know. Yeah, Plato to Walter Benjamin. Okay, so the point of the Plato quote is saying that it's bad when people confuse fiction for reality. And fiction is an imitation. Yeah, of reality. He's really twisting that quote to its limits to fit it into this exact specific framework, though.
1936, writes an essay about what happens to art once you can mechanically reproduce it. He says when you copy something, even the original is depreciated because it is no longer unique. Well, that's it right there. These copies don't just sit next to the original. Every copy is compounded on top of the original, making it worth less and less and less. Then we find Jean Baudrillard, a French sociologist in 1981, described that eventually the copy doesn't just replace the original, people start to prefer the copy because it's cleaner and louder and easier to consume. A whole generation grows up on the copy and never once meets the original thing it was copied from. And that is exactly how I define the relationship that Rings of Power has with Tolkien. The dozens of people who still watch Rings of Power are watching this show thinking that this is what Tolkien had always intended. And if you think I'm wrong about that, you don't have any grasp on how normies willingly...
At It's Your Boy 562 super chatted $1.23. Bro must have a nuanced take on game remakes, I bet.
I'm sure he loves those. Okay, so the argument is that people prefer a duplication to the original. In some cases, sure. However, what he's saying is a little complicated here. He's arguing that there's only dozens of people who watch Rings of Power anymore. Okay. But also it's a big enough problem that we have to be wary of it. Well, if it's that small a problem, and people prefer the copy, but there's no one watching the copy, then what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, if no one's watching it, who cares? It has to be consumed in large quantities to be worth this discussion you're concerned about. Further, can a normie confuse the original Lord of the Rings for the intentionality of the adaptations? Yeah, sure. But there's another copy of Lord of the Rings it has a bigger impact than the Rings of Power. The Peter Jackson films. More normal people will confuse Tolkien's intent from the Peter Jackson films than they will Rings of Power, because Rings of Power isn't good enough to keep them engaged as long versus the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is vastly superior in many respects. Ralph Bakshi before that did the same thing. And the thing is, just because this philosopher said a certain thing does not mean there is no context in which to discuss it. For example, let's take a look at that one essay. What was that? It was, let's look at that real quick. Oh, come on. Do you have access to it? Okay, cool. I have access to this article. Cool. So, we have the article right up here. Yes, from April 1984 Art Forum, from imitation to the copy to the just effect on reading Jean Baudrillard. 20th century has observed a striking reduction in the notion of the imagination. What was once the shaping power of thought, the purveyor of meaning, has become a kind of cybernetic machine, its overloaded circuits programmed to spew out scintillating visual forms. Sheer images, pure surfaces emanate from the image mechanism, only to slither into the glamour of the void that constitutes consumer society, their external enhancements compensating for the loss of substantive matter.
At Nick Wolf 3885 super chatted $2. He literally went, the foe's too strong and too weak, skull and crossbones.
Exactly. From their conceptual origins, simulacra were instruments of illusion, though the simulacrum's dictionary definition stays constant as a mere image, a spacious imitational likeness. The concept has shifted through the time according to social relations and systems of power, and the significant practices they imply. In the most extensive treatment of the subject to date, Jean Baudrillard distinguishes 3 orders of simulacra. Here we go. The first, he writes, is that of the counterfeit. Was born with the Renaissance and is a sign of finding value in emulation of nature, posing the metaphysical question of reality against appearance. Based on imitation, it was structured on the natural law of value. With industrial development, it receded before the productivist order, patterned on market law. What does that mean? Well, right there it's saying that there's multiple forms of imitation. One is the counterfeit, a faking of what is. In the second order, corresponding to the modern period, signs no longer refer to nature but to human production. Its models omit the machine, energy, and the system of labor itself. The avatar is not the crafted analog of nature, singular in its form, but the plural. Reproducible, its forms of series, forms reflecting the growing importance of technique. The industrial simulacrum, there, however, diminishes on entry to our period, the post-industrial period, characterized by simulacra of simulation, dominated by the code, the model, and the operational practice of the cybernetic world. The shift from stucco angel to computer graphics and synthetic hues is not fortuitous. It is historically determined, reflecting changes whose impact is felt in culture, politics, and economics. Most importantly, however, these changes mirror mutations in the structure of representation, which register the gradual loss of the real or objective world, and with it of the notion of reference. Thus, the Renaissance counterfeit invoked the terms of the philosophical of representation, of the original, of resemblance and faithful imitation. Its structure corresponded to the classic sign, composed of signifier and signified, repeating its doubled arrangements in the substitution of the reality's image for the real. Nature underlies this configuration as the ultimate referent, and it was the aim of creating a parallel universe, echoing the natural world. The haunted, the period, inspiring the great theatrical interiors and other examples of trompe-l'oeil. The emblem of resemblance was the automation, conceived as the mechanical counterpart, the ideal figure, the perfect double of man. And you're probably wondering, what the fuck are we talking about right now? Allow me to show you the example of the digital copy he's referring to.
At Balthazar 228 super chatted $5. I thought the Avatar was the master of all four elements, and when the world needed him the most, he vanished.
Not quite. However, I do have an example of exactly what he's talking about.
At Sarasete super chatted $5. Framing adaptation a morality issue, instead of taste, betrays an anxiety about art as something uncontrollable.
I agree. Now let me show you exactly what our friend here is referring to. You ready for this? Here we go. A digital recreation, a counterfeit of reality. This is the copy of a copy that the real-life fake wizards claims this philosopher was so afraid of. Here's the reality of it. A digital recreation of a real thing. Not a recreation or a counterfeit of what is real, but a digital representation of what is. This is an article talking about the fear of the digital copying reality and thus making people just being cheaper to it. This is an article about being afraid of touching grass because you'd rather play games instead. When you read the source, you realize that maybe, the guy quoting it might be misrepresenting something. But is that third level? What's the third level? To the automation, the second order opposed of the robot, a figure whose emergence is more than the signal of industrial connotations, for the robot is regular not by likeness, but by equivalence. It is not man's analog conceived in his image, but his functional or operative adjunct. This Legend of Zelda, this Link, is your adjunct, a functionality in the digital counterfeit of reality, meant to substitute it. The real-life fake wizard took an article complaining that computer games will make people not want to live in reality and made it about Disney making a Punisher film. All the while, he defends video game rights. You cannot make this shit up. The levels of self-own by citing this article in particular is hilarious. In fact, ironically, his own video would count as this. Let's cut all this out. As a digital recreation of some other form of art, where people would prefer this copy to the original, that copy being of the various forms of media he discusses therein. By his own words, his own video is antiquated, for it is indeed a copy of a copy of a copy. Only problem is, like a Xerox being re-Xeroxed over and over again, he fails to actually manage to understand the irony of saying that copies of copies are bad when his work is indeed a copy of a copy, copying the various works he complains and regurgitating it into a replacement of what it is he is criticizing. A copy of a copy of a fake wizard. The problem is real-life fake wizard is that in doing this, you forget the fact that your own work is inherently a copy of a copy, because you are only existing with this critique because you want to create a substitute of the works you're criticizing, as all bad faith critics do, telling your audience this is what it is, without going in to actually analyze what it is you're saying. As do all great thinkers do, you fell into the trap of your own linguistical talents. And by the way,
81 described that eventually the copy doesn't just replace the original, people start to prefer the copy because it's cleaner and louder and easier to consume.
Again, they prefer. The copy he's referring to is not the copy of art, my friend. It is the copy of reality itself. That being, the media we consume is preferable to touching grass. The problem with citing works is you actually have to read the works. This is one time I do respect real-life fake wizard over someone like Remnant 777, who just throws shit out of the wall and hopes it sticks. This guy at least cites his work. But the reason why now I know why Remnant doesn't cite his work is because, like with Wizard right here, if you actually read the thing he's citing, you realize it doesn't actually help his argument at all. He's just plugging in an article saying, oh, this is what they said, and assuming no one would check the work to confirm that.
Whole generation grows up on the copy and never once meets the original thing it was copied from. And that is exactly how I define the relationship that Rings of Power has with Tolkien. The dozens of people who still watch Rings of Power are watching this show thinking that this is what Tolkien had always intended. And if you think I'm wrong about that, you don't have any grasp on how normies willingly and thoughtlessly drift through these adaptations. They really just float through them. Yes.
Okay, so take my word for it, I'm totally right. Shut up if you think I'm wrong. Compelling argument, buddy. All right, I gotta run to the bathroom real quick. I'm gonna play a little bit of music for you all while I'm running away, but I want you all to consider right now a quick question as I am distracting you from my own temporary absence, and that is simply this. I'm gonna leave a poll in chat. Do you think the wizard has a point? Yes or no? This does not say if you think he's right, but do you think he's onto something with his whole analogy in general? Aye, there's the rub. Wait, I have these songs on my computer. Why am I waiting for this to load? Oh. Okay. I'll let you all decide as I return. I'll be right back. Don't worry, I'm back. I'm back. Oh god, the music just stopped? I should put it on repeat or something. Crud. Okay, never mind. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. Sorry about that, y'all. Hope you didn't wait in silence while I was gone. That's annoying. Okay. Okay, cool. Most people agree this guy has no point, but some of you guys think he might have a point. And I respect that. You're always allowed to have different opinions than myself here. There we go. Oh, wrong earphone. Sorry. One doesn't work. Gotta get
At
new
Nick
earphones.
Wolf 3885 super chatted $2. Normies gives me the same ick as tourists.
Yeah. It's the same idea, same mindset. That's what it ultimately is. I mean, back to this.
I'm serious. There are people who truly believe that Galadriel and Sauron had a will they, won't they relationship, and worse. At this point, I could hear,
Who cares? Look, let me be honest with you. Does it matter? Does that really matter? I mean, if like a couple people think that, then as I get bigger on YouTube, I just always think like, okay, you know what? Who fucking cares what someone thinks? You know, like who cares? If like some random person thinks that, then cool. They're off on their own and they don't talk to me, so I don't care. It's more like if it spreads massive misinformation, it's important to discuss. Like if they think that Tolkien intended that without actually reading Tolkien, then they have other problems that need addressing before I ever get to this, you know?
a few of you in the comments saying, Wizard, people have always retold stories. Myths get reinterpreted. Nobody owns the stories. Yeah, sure. Okay, well, we have Greek mythology, right, on one hand, and then we have God of War on another. And I'm not dismissing that, but hold that thought for a...
Well, even Greek mythology, the myths are inconsistent. The myths evolved over time. Myths are organic. They grow and change and develop as time goes on. Even the pantheon of gods changed over time, depending on which era in Greek history you're centered in. There's a big gap between Greek mythology in its general form and God of War. A lot of things in between those points happened, you know?
A minute here. Actually, hang on. I am pausing in between doing the video here because I just had an epiphany. God of War is a living embodiment of this adaptation death. I can't believe I didn't think of it.
You're so
right
fucking
now.
predictable.
Back to the video.
You're so fucking predictable. You had to do a bit of a, God of War Lofty, it totally is bad. Like, without playing it, you fucking chud. Like, you had to throw that last one little thing in there, huh? You had to toss it in. Because you're like, ooh, what other buzzword can I throw into my video to make it more appealing to my audience? Without actually going into detail of anything. By the way, we're not that far in the video. He's barely given a single example yet. Let's let him hear him out. Let's hear him out for a second.
1932, a Cambridge psychologist named Frederick Bartlett ran an experiment. He took a strange little folktale named The War of the Ghosts, had a person read it, then had them retell it to the next person, who retold it to the next, down a chain, like our game of telephone from before. And he measured exactly what happened to the story. Every single time the story was retold, he found 3 unique things. The first is assimilation. People changed the unfamiliar details to match their own world views. The second example is called leveling. Each storyteller dropped whatever they decided wasn't important. So the story got shorter and dumber with each iteration. And thirdly is sharpening. These storytellers reorganized.
Well, no, not dumber. Not necessarily dumber. Shorter, yes, but not necessarily dumber. You'd have to know examples they thought were unimportant, you know? For example, if someone was like, if the poem, for example, here's a great example of that. I'd be reading my son a lot of fairy tales, like the Grimm's fairy tales, right? When you read Snow White, you go through these like cycles where the evil queen has a poisoned comb or, has a dress that poisons her, whatever. And with each iteration, it's like Snow White, don't accept gifts from strangers now, Snow White. And every time she would take another gift from the queen, who's obviously the same queen. And she'd always come in a disguise as an old woman until you get to the poisoned apple, which sticks for a bit. Now, The Disney version chops it down to one poisoned item, just the poisoned apple, because it's less repetitive than the same thing happening 3 times over and over and over again. Is the story dumber for making Snow White fall for a trick once as opposed to 3 fucking times? Like, what are we doing here? Like, you can't say that condensing it makes it dumber when sometimes it makes it smarter. At least a little more compelling.
Racer45 super chatted $5. This guy also has an anti-Nintendo bias for some reason.
He seems to hate all video game consoles, bizarrely. I don't think he likes anything, quite honestly.
Ordered plot points into a tidier sense the original never had. You see, the storyteller changed the details of the story to flatter the present listener or to flatter themselves. They dropped what they had thought was hard to communicate or too challenging for the audience to hear. They smoothed the story into something smaller than it originally was. And now, we're less theoretical on this. This is a lab experiment that we're discussing. A scientist proved in 1932 that a story told and retold gets fainter and dumber.
No, he didn't. Okay, no. Okay, so here's the problem here with your logic. Here's the problem. By having people retell the story, it proves that he noticed a couple of trends in this experiment specifically.
At Alexander Despians Brassard 9109 super chatted $1.41. This guy's a cleric because he's chasing heresies.
Exactly. And then the problem with this logic is, no, it doesn't prove that this is the case. All it does is illustrate that this particular experiment with these particular people happened to go a certain way in a certain sequence. That is not the same thing as saying that every time that we would do something like this, it would have the same result. Many experiments that have proven certain things have been recreated, and the effects are not always exactly as detailed in that first experiment. For example, the Milgram experiment, very famously, when it's been redone, the effects have been different when certain variables are shifted. Also, you're not giving a lot of details. Were they given the story on paper and told to retell it? Were they verbally told it like in Telephone? The problem is telling them is very vague right now. Is there a source material to draw from? Did they intentionally decide what to get rid of? Or was it more unintentional? A lot of details you're leaving out there, buddy. That's the problem.
At Olivia _Williams _purple _fairy super chatted $4.92. He's complaining that stories get shorter while before he was complaining about sequels who by definition expend the story. Make up your mind.
Exactly. Now that being said also, the big issue is, with all of this, is that the Rings of Power is adapting the appendices to Lord of the Rings. Not the Silmarillion, but the appendices and implied statements of Lord of the Rings. They only own the rights to Lord of the Rings, not the Silmarillion.
At Tomo Show 7212 super chatted $2. I cannot stand his use of they.
Yeah, no, it's very vague. The problem is he is in general very vague. He's not giving specifics on anything. That's a problem.
And more like the people telling it, and he gave the rot 3 unique names. So let's take a look at some of this War of the Ghosts experiment that is happening today in real time. There is a new Chronicles of Narnia on the way with Greta Gerwig writing and directing. Producer Amy Pascal described it out loud as, quote, all about rock and roll. And the reference point leaking out about this Narnia film is that they are using Pink Floyd and The Doors either in the film or as something to interpret for the music. I don't think that that's at all what author C.S. Lewis had in mind when he wrote this fantasy.
Who cares? Pink Floyd's awesome. You know? And you can never argue that Pink Floyd or The Doors are by any definition unintelligent. So they're taking a different direction with the narrative. So what? It's an adaptation. Who cares? Hell, I think personally that Pink Floyd in a fantasy story sounds like a great combination. People were combining Pink Floyd with The Wizard of Oz, where they would play the Dark Side of the Moon album twice over for the entire soundtrack instead of actually listening to the audio of The Wizard of Oz, and it fit pretty nicely. So right there, Pink Floyd's always been interpreted with fantasy since its infancy.
But you see, that's the first move. That's assimilation. Gerwig's team is turning a 1940s English fairy tale into a 19...
At Thinavo3893 super chatted $5. What the difference between this people who get into Lord of the Ring by watching Peter Jackson movies, which isn't the same as the book?
Exactly. Everything he's saying can apply to the Peter Jackson film too, or the previous adaptations of The Wizard of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, including, by the way, the, in my opinion, very underrated adaptations from the BBC from the 80s. I think those are the best adaptations of the Narnia books to date, personally, but I digress. Also, 1940s. The publication date of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. When were those books written? Buddy. Gotta say, I don't think 1950 was during the 1940s, personally. I don't know what to tell you. 1940s. Listen, if you're gonna act like a snob about adaptation, at least get the fucking date right. You're making an edited movie. You scripted this, right? You can double check the date of publication.
60s rock record because that's the music they like. And also, the setting has been moved from the book's Victorian-era London into the 1950s. The world of the story is being adjusted to fit the world of the people retelling it.
Buddy, the Narnia books partially take place during the 1950s. They were published in the 1950s. Now, whatever.
They cast Aslan the Lion. In the book, Aslan is a male lion with a deep voice, the Lion of Judah. C.S. Lewis's living stand-in for Jesus Christ in the Narnia stories. In May 2026, Netflix confirmed that Aslan is being voiced by Meryl Streep. Aslan is a very specific thing.
Okay, hang on. Okay, now I see why he's pissed. Let's confirm that. Oh, it's adapting The Magician's Nephew. Oh, that's a bit different. You should have mentioned that one. It's not The Lion, Witch, the Wardrobe. It's The Magician's Nephew, which, by the way, was published in 1955. Jesus Christ. Okay. Where's Meryl Streep? Hang on a second. Wait. Hang on a second. Hang on. Hang on, guys. They haven't confirmed who Meryl Streep's playing yet.
At Racerk45 super chatted $5. Does he know that men have voiced female characters and vice versa?
Yeah, but they haven't even confirmed Meryl Streep is Aslan yet. Now, mind you, it's rumored, but much like how we saw with everyone saying that Elliot Page was absolutely playing Achilles, until we have official casting, I'm going to not take the rumors on the internet at face value. So he's responding to a rumor that hasn't been confirmed, and the rumor was from a year ago.
At Lupin the Maelstrom super chatted $2. To quote P. Hail Mary, Streep can do anything.
Exactly. Meryl Streep can do whatever she wants, honestly. And yes, Aslan is Jesus. I know that. That's the whole thing. You know, Aslan's Jesus. I know that. Everyone knows that bit. But who cares? It's an adaptation of Lewis's work, not the novels themselves.
He's in this story for a very specific reason: a king, a son, and a sacrifice. And you do not cast against every one of those by accident. No.
How is Meryl Streep not able to play a sacrificial role? I find that a little confusing. So you're saying it's a king, a son, a sacrifice. Well, it can be a leader of any kind. That's fine. It's not really an ethereal person. It's an extra dimensional entity, essentially. It can have a female voice. That's not a big deal. Also, a sacrifice. How is anything about Meryl Streep against that part of it? That's strange. What you really mean is to say Aslan is Jesus.
No, you do it to sand the harder Christian edges off the character until he's a warm archetype that won't corner anybody at a dinner party. See, that's the second move. That's leveling. The piece of the story most likely to start an argument is the piece that must go first. And then
everyone fucking knows Aslan is Jesus. All right? We've had multiple adaptations beforehand, and all of them made sure to tell us Aslan was in fact Jesus. Now, when we get to the final battle and Susan gets kicked out of heaven because she wants to play makeup and shit, then we know that they haven't ironed down the edges. But I digress.
And that brings us to the third moving piece, the sharpening of the story, which is the tidiest new meaning they bolt on to cover up all the holes.
Buddy, they're adapting The Magician's Nephew. It's not an adaptation of The Lion, the Witch, or The Wardrobe. It's an adaptation of a different book. And you haven't seen the movie yet. So you have no actual idea, beyond these vague descriptions of the film, what they're actually doing. Only a moron pretends he knows what a film is going to do before the film does it. At this specific of a level.
Female Aslan is a new thesis to Narnia. In this case, God is a woman. The old story was small. We improved it. We've brought our own modern sensibilities with us too. Except C.S. Lewis didn't write any of that, nor did he ever intend any of that. And if you actually read into Lewis's works, you'd find that most of his philosophical letters and studies were more impactful than the Narnia fantasies. He would despise what is being done to his legacy today. Yeah, not your grandmother's Narnia is the actual phrase the IMAX boss used to...
The IMAX boss? Oh no, the IMAX boss said it. Because the IMAX boss is the one doing all of the actual creative stuff. Dude, you're taking PR statements from people who want to make money from the film, who are just saying shit to get asses in theaters as an idea of the creative direction of the film, because you have nothing else but the promotional material of producers who aren't making the movie. They're just financing the movie or lending equipment to make the movie. Greta Gerwig has done some pretty controversial movies in the past, my guy. She's not exactly... If you want to judge Greta Gerwig as a creator, then look at Greta Gerwig's previous work. Specifically, look at Barbie and Little Women, which exist as adaptations of something else. Other really noteworthy works that we've seen. When it comes to adaptations, Greta Gerwig has a track record of actually expanding on certain ideas in ways that are interesting and innovative. And that's what it is.
Sell this to investors in December of 2025. Well, C.S. Lewis already had a name for this kind of attitude. He called it chronological snobbery, a reflex that newer automatically means wiser, and then he spent his life writing against that ideal.
Yeah, but he's not producing the
Boy
movie.
562 super chatted $3.08. Chemicals in the IMAX are turning the frickin' lions gay.
Oh no, not the pride of lions.
And so the canoes have become hunting or boats or whatever it was in that study, and the Lion of Judah is now what Hollywood keeps calling a goat. Now, maybe you're not a Narnia fan.
Keep calling a goat? The lion is now a... What the fuck you talking about, dude? What does that even fucking mean? The lion has become a goat. What's that? What the fuck does that even mean, dude? I don't know what that even means. Like the goat, like the greatest of all time, or like is it like a sexist thing? I don't know. Oh, demonic. Oh, like Satan. Like Samael and all that, right? You know. Okay. So now he's saying that making Aslan a woman makes him the devil. Oh God. Oh no. If we make a divine entity from a novel that's fictional into a woman, that's the same as bringing Satan into our own homes. Or do you mean the greatest of all time? Which means, yeah, Meryl Streep is the GOAT.
That's fine. But regardless of where you are in your life, you've heard this phrase before, haven't you? Turn the other cheek. Yeah, you know this phrase. You think you know what it means, too. Today, it means being a doormat, taking the hit from those who challenge you, and be submissive. Walk it off. Being the bigger man means being submissive to those who would do you wrong. Isn't that what Jesus would want?
The fuck are you talking about, dude? How do we get here? What does this mean? Why are we talking about this? What does that have to do with anything you're talking about? How did we get here, man? Jesus Christ. Oh my goodness. He's so ass mad about this. He really is. You can tell how much he's talking about it.
At Lupin the Maelstrom super chatted $2. Does he know lionesses are a pride's main hunters?
I don't think he knows anything about actual lions. I think he's talking about just Jesus only. What are we even talking about, dude? What does any of this have to do with adaptations? All you're going at is a movie that hasn't come out yet, and thus you don't know how it adapts the story of the magician's nephew. Of the magician's nephew. Not The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, again, there is the timeline conceit of the story. This takes place before Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I believe The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe takes place in the 40s because they have to go from World War II to their uncle's house. But they can do any conceit they want to get the kids to the uncle's house in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This is not that. This is before that. So I digress.
Isn't that right? He's the one who said to turn the other cheek, didn't he? Well, yes, except that is the opposite of what it meant. And it's not at all what Christ was trying to say. In historical context, being struck in public was a sign of disrespect. To slap someone with a backhand was to insult someone as being beneath you in the eyes of the public.
That's how it is today, too. Being smacked is usually that case.
It was an insult. And it could be done legally by a master to someone of lesser class or worse. So when Jesus Christ explained that you should turn the other cheek, he wasn't saying to be submissive to the one striking you. He was saying to turn your head, which forces your oppressor to be forced to either hit you with an open-palmed hand, which signifies that you are equals, or he'll have to stop hitting you altogether. Turning the other cheek is a sign of peaceful defiance.
What does any of this shit have to do with adapting books into films?
At Lupin the Maelstrom super chatted $2. Extra extra woke Hollywood's TR at Ensing Lion Jesus.
Exactly. They've trans Jesus. Jesus Christ. Like, what does any of this bullshit, this sanctimonious, self-righteous bullshit, have to do with a general trend in Hollywood of adapting stories? What does any of this have to do with any of the shit you're talking about? All you're doing is coming across as a sanctimonious, self-righteous little git, and you're not actually engaging with the argument you presented to the audience. Like, who cares? Right?
And through time and upholding traditions, the phrase has been weaponized against the very people it was meant to empower. Turn the other cheek. Don't let them get to you. Be submissive. Actually, this is a very serious issue with lots of biblical stories too. With every adaptation of the Nativity, little by little, more is embellished and softened until people can't really tell you what the original was. The Easter story.
There's two different versions of the story in the Gospels. There's two different versions of the same event in the Gospels, both which are adaptations that were done separately.
Williams _
Come on,
purple
man.
_ fairy super chatted $4.92. That's so bullshit. Turning the other cheek wouldn't make it more likely to be hit with the open hand.
Yeah, no, you can still hit you with the backhand anyway, with the other backhand. Like, here's the thing. None of what he's saying matters here.
Story, the parables, all of it, and countless stories, not even just the Jesus Christ story. The impact of why all of the biblical stories mattered is being eroded away.
Give an example. Give an example of a biblical adaptation that specifically eroded a specific parable from the Bible.
At Balthazar 228 super chatted $4.99. Transubstantiation? The Bible has clearly gone woke.
They've trans the body and blood of Christ by making it turn into the body and blood of Christ. Jesus Christ, that's funny as hell. No, but like, in general, like, what the fuck's your argument, dude? Like, here's the thing. If your argument is specific versions of the Jesus Christ story have softened the adaptation, I wouldn't even say you're wrong. But you gotta give an example to solidify your point. Because, shockingly, the Narnia books are what are called allegorical. They're not directly adapting the story of Jesus either. Therefore, if you're saying these modern stories that adapt Jesus' story poorly are, in fact, insubstantiating the myth and life of Jesus, then C.S. Lewis is also doing that. By your own logic, it is a copy of the copy, that being the Gospels, of the original, which is Jesus Christ's life. So, by your own logic, the guy you're defending is doing the very thing you're arguing people today are doing. Your own logic falls apart when applied upon itself, or its own examples anyway.
So it is not just Star Wars, it is not just Daredevil, it's everything. Yeah, this has been happening for all of history. It's not just Superman getting the James Gunn treatment.
Give an example. Give one example of a Jesus adaptation that fails. One example. If you do it in this video, that'd be great. I'd love to hear it. But you can't just throw that kind of statement out there without substantiating it with a specific example.
It's everything, everywhere, all the time. Every copy bends the story a little more toward the people doing the copying and a little further from whatever was true until the meaning is a clear reversal of where it started. And audiences just nod along blindly. They have no idea. And even the adaptations we might classify as good.
Oh, so you're not going to give any examples. You're not going to give an example. Okay, that's great. That's fucking great.
Have this problem too. Even the ones that try their.
At Nick Wolf 3885 super chatted $2. Can't love nativity till you heard the Og Klingon.
I know, right? Oh, Hamlet's really superior in the original Klingon.
Best. Leave out details or change things. In the past, film adaptations made adjustments because the technology of the age wasn't suitable to tell the stories to their fullest extent. But today,
No, hang on a second there. Hang on a second there. No. What technology kept Peter Jackson from adapting Tom Bombadil? Please explain that one. What technology was so advanced we needed to bring that we couldn't use it in time for Tom Bombadil to be adapted into the Lord of the Rings adaptation? Or the Scouring of the Shire, for that matter. Please explain that one to me. What was the technology that kept us from having those scenes adapted? Yeah. It's funny how that works out, isn't it? When you try to make exceptions saying, oh no, the examples I like are good and they're fine. But your example doesn't really make much sense, does it?
adjustments are made for the sake of simplicity in demonstration for casual audiences. Project Hail Mary came out in March of 2026. It is an adaptation of Andy Weir's novel, and to make the movie, they cut out a lot. They dropped most of the hard science the book was built on. They took the character Eva Stratt, who in the book is a borderline sociopath, and they softened her into someone sympathetic who does karaoke, whereas she is vicious in the book. The whole procedure of Ryan Gosling's character losing his memory in the book is intentional as part of his kidnapping and placement on the astronaut crew. In the movie, it's played off as if it's a side effect of the knockout drug they used to put him in a sleep coma. But yes, the film is good, and it's even better if you haven't read the book where you find the full context. So there's an uncomfortable truth here. Sometimes Bartlett's leveling is not the end of the world when the soul of the story is tightly built and the adaptation is crafted by people who are attempting to honor the source material. Peter Jackson's position on the original Lord of the Rings film trilogy fits this ideal perfectly. Those films were made to honor Tolkien.
At Thinavo3893 super chatted $5. Fun fact, Tolkien family, especially his son, hated the Peter Jackson adaptation.
Exactly. And Wave's right in the comments too. Different than book, therefore bad. So the Christopher Tolkien hated Peter Jackson's adaptation. Like, downright despised it. Felt it was a betrayal to his father's work. So, Peter Jackson did honor the adaptation, honor the original work when making the work. That does not mean that the family and estate of the original work honored him. But alternatively, they have movies like Nosferatu. The original Nosferatu was essentially just them trying to make Dracula without paying for the rights for Dracula. It's a masterpiece, but it's not honoring the original work, is it? It's trying to cash in on the original work. It just happens to be a great work of fiction itself. Intentionality does not matter so much as the results of the attempt, I think. Though intention can influence the effects of said work.
However, I can't quite say Jackson or I feel the same way about what he's about to do next. What with the upcoming spin-off films that tie into the Jackson film universe. You either die a hero or you live.
There's still adaptations of the book, though. They're taking scenes from the book and making property out of them.
Live long enough to see yourself become a villain. So how are heroes turned into villains? How are parables meant to empower defiance hijacked into phrases of submission? It's the same way that the story changes in a game of telephone with kids. There are sentences kids just don't understand being said, or maybe they misheard. They caught some of it, most of it even, and filled in the gaps the best that they could. But in our creative world, there are more than just people mishearing what is being said, and they are actively changing the substance of the message in the middle of the line of the game, and then passing it along, meeting their own values, ideals, and sensibilities. The people running these studios are just playing telephone, but it's at the expense of human expression. See, people today look at...
Buddy, if they are putting their own spin on another story, that's their human expression. Now, you make the argument that it's not effective as an adaptation on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, of course. I've done that too. For example, when looking at her own adaptation, looking at the Ghibli adaptation of the Earthsea novels, Ursula K. Le Guin felt that the characters were too pale. However, as the Ghibli execs explained, these characters looked dark to a Japanese audience. But to Le Guin, not enough. They're both not wrong. The difference is that you can make the argument that it was a betrayal of the original work based on the context of the original work. Just how it is. Their intention, they're still having human expression through the work. It's just ineffective as an adaptation and betrays a certain theme in the original novel. That is a case-by-case example. The problem is when you talk in terms of extreme overreach and extreme hyper example, you kind of neglect to actually illustrate the specific elements that are worth discussing. The specific elements of human experience worth discussing and how it reflects on the work itself as a whole. Adaptation is all about human experience, all about reshaping a work that already exists into the work that you, as the adapter, want it to be.
Get rings of power, and they may think that that's what Tolkien had intended, but there's also a deeper meaning there too. They think they understand Tolkien. The viewers, I mean, both the viewers and the creators. They think that this version of the story is now true, but also that this is what Tolkien had always wanted.
No, it's just an adaptation of a work. No, what are you talking about? This is stupid. No, the reason why they do that is to make it more marketable. That's the ultimate reason. If your argument was studio execs try to take complex stories and they file them down somewhat to make them more marketable to a general audience, that is worth criticizing. The problem is you're not saying that. You're saying it's some sort of intentional evil message to corrupt the message of the film, when in actuality it's cynical. It's not evil, it's just numbers. It's just trying to find the right statistics to back up my claim. It's just stupid. This is a dumb argument. Why am I even engaging it this much?
They don't feel like they're missing out or are being lied to. And they are being lied to. And the people doing the changing are doing the lying. These people don't mourn for the loss of truth because they have no idea what the truth was, or they don't care. And they won't pick up the books to discover the difference. It's not only the death of human expression that we are witnessing, but also the death of human legacy. Legacy means nothing when the stewards of that legacy are willing to shake hands and deal with devils for a couple of bucks. But this leads me back to you. A lot of messaging I have for this channel is to create, innovate, and inspire others to do so as well. And the reason for that is the stories of the past have been altered, hijacked, perverted, bastardized, most of them to points of no return. But we are still in a position to talk about it. You and I are still in positions that we know the truth. We can discuss the truth. We know what is good and bad and right and wrong, and so the charge kinda lands on you and me and our communities and friends around us to talk about these problems, to call them out, to tell everyone what Hollywood is doing, what is going on at large in our civilization. But also, it is our moral prerogative to create new things, to make the next wave, the next generation of stories, to replace what has been taken and ruined from us. I'm not interested in seeing Narnia adapted again. I'm done with Star Wars.
Then stop talking about it, dude.
At Eustace Giwo super chatted $5. Softening Christian EA. Thinking face like Lewis did when had a not so subtle Muslim stand in meet Aslan in heaven because he lived a good and honorable life?
Yeah, crazy that works out, right? Like, this is so stupid. This is so dumb. Okay, so listen. Here's the problem with everything you're saying. You're done with Star Wars. You're done with Tolkien, with all this Narnia stuff. Well, buddy, did you ever consider maybe that a different adaptation shouldn't just be the same exact structure that came before? That everyone who makes an adaptation can take their own spin on it? There have been hundreds of adaptations of Dracula and Frankenstein, and yet none of them are true adaptations of the work in their entirety. And that's fine. We have so many different versions of a familiar story that each version allows the creator to take the framework of the narrative in their own creative way. A true fan of these narratives is always excited to see how different cinematic lenses can reinterpret them. I would argue that the Disney Narnia films from the 2000s are worse adaptations than the BBC ones, which are more faithful, more direct, more in line with the style of Lewis's writing style. Wouldn't say they're bad, just different. That's reality.
Done with Lord of the Rings. I love the originals of all 3 of those stories and what they represent. What I want next is the new stories, the next compelling thing. And
did you go see Obsession? It's kind of a big deal in theaters right now. That's why I say repeatedly, horror fans show up, right? Horror fans always show up to the new thing.
And that comes
At Nick Wolf 3885 super chatted $5. Vid reminds me of Simpsons Homer v. Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Do we want Patterson with his finger on the button? What button? What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, what are we talking about here? What does any of this mean, buddy?
from you. That comes from you putting pen to paper and getting to work. And if you say, Wizard, I just want to watch your videos. I don't really want to do anything. I don't have a story in me to tell. Okay, well, I got a job for you too. Encourage others to try. Encourage the people around you to be creative. The internet is a sick, negative place. If you, yes, you, were to offer encouragement to the people around you, unironically, you would be surprised how much good an encouraging word can do. In fact, you'd probably be shocked. So until next time, create, innovate, inspire others to do so as well, and cancel Disney Plus.
Now, here's the thing right there. The ultimate message isn't bad. Trying to encourage people to make their own work, great. I encourage that too. Make your own work, do that. We need more original ideas. Here's the problem, though. When is he going to market those original ideas? See, it's all good for him to say, oh, make original work. Is he going to try marketing them?
At Kippy Ace Artist super chatted $2. Bro needs to watch more unfiction online horror.
Exactly. 100%.
At Thinavo3893 super chatted $2. Cool. Where is his book? Games?
Exactly. The problem is he's not actually saying what those works are. It's all well and good to tell your audience, hey, we want to see original work. We want to see you make something worth something. That's great. I love that message. But you got to actually offer to help market those works. Because these creative works aren't simply just things that come out of the ground, like radishes. They require you to actually bolster them, to promote them, to support them. Where is the support he's giving?
At Lupin the Maelstrom super chatted $2. My bro and Chris, you're using Kingdom Hearts BGM.
Exactly. Well, okay. I can't criticize that. It's a good soundtrack. It's a good soundtrack. But it is pretty ironic for him to say, cancel Disney Plus while having Kingdom Hearts music playing, because that's kind of like, kind of a big deal, Okay, so it's getting a little late. We're going to start the second video I was planning on watching, but we may not finish it. We'll see how far we get. Given how concrete his argument's been so far, I'm sure he gives great points that are substantial and not at all nonsense. But let's see what he does.
Hello, I'm the real-life fake wizard. For the last decade and some change, the internet has discussed and chronologized the battles of the culture war. Well, after all the releases of June 2026, I'm here to confidently tell you the war is over. Yes, the culture war is over. Do you know who won? No one. humanity is lost. To give a brief introduction of this culture war.
Jesus Christ.
At Grown Witzard super chatted $2. I do believe he adverts some INDE games.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Let's even promote some novels. Let's even promote some books that are original, like some indie books. That'd be fun.
Or on one side, you find people who think a hero should adhere to the classical standards and beliefs of heroism that have been found throughout all of human history. That a story is supposed to mean something, and that you don't hand children, the next generation of humanity, protagonists that embody cowardly, weak, and or selfish ideals. The motivation of this camp of people is preservation of the values of the past. On the other side, you'll find institutions and people inside of them who look at the exact same stories and see a list of things that must be fixed. Too old, too simple, too narrow, built by and for people who don't look like the whole room. And they believe that to change and destroy the past is to make it better. And they mean it too. This camp is not interested in preservation at all. They will revise a story until it's less of a story at all and more of a delivery system for whatever message they've decided it's important for you and the next generation of listeners to hear. Which means...
So what's the difference then? So you're saying that a story is either a message story meant to communicate important messages or a message story meant to incorporate to communicate important messages. That's not how it works, buddy. The problem is also by that metric, give an example. Don't give an example. I know you're going to talk about the Acolyte, She-Hulk, whatever. So don't ask him what he thinks about the story of Oedipus. You know, classical heroes and all that. This is such a reductive mindset to go into. Where would Guts fit into this? Where would Berserk fit into this? Classic heroes meant to inspire. Where does Joe Abercrombie fit into this? Where does Elric of Melniboné and the Eternal Hero fit into this? Where does Conan the Cimmerian fit into this? Where does Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, King Lear, where do they fit into this? Where does the tragedy of Beowulf fit into this?
At Olivia_Williams_purple_fairy super chatted $4.92. Ah yes, the heroes of the past with great values, like Samson, who chested, lied and pretty much committed unaliving bombing at the end.
Exactly. This is ridiculous. This is not how reality works. The stories, this is such an overly simplified perspective of what these stories are. It's ridiculous. Even Superman, by the time the 70s movie came out that you referenced right there, had already undergone multiple changes as a person. You know, he had already went through different changes as a character. Also, She-Hulk was never an idealized hero. That was never the point of She-Hulk. So to use She-Hulk as your example is fucking ridiculous. Because She-Hulk was always kind of this parody pastiche character. She's a lawyer. She's not really she's a hero, but like, it's just not comparable. So the question is, why would you use those examples specifically as your elements of the culture war, when in actuality, a lot of us think very differently of what you think the culture war is, because, in case you've forgotten, the culture war started mainly with Gamergate, which was all about a bunch of nerds who were maybe allegedly motivated by astroturfing by Epstein to attack a game developer for having sex.
$5. If Wizard wants new fantasy IPs that are actually trying, maybe he should try anime right now. It's seriously popping off ATM.
Oh, hell yeah. And shout out to We Are Not Alive in chat. How's it going, man? Yeah, no, there's some great anime right now this season. I mean, I always fuck up the name. Atelier. Fucking fantastic. There's that new crack anime that just came out. There is Go For It Nakamura-kun, which I think is really good. That got heavy towards the last couple episodes. Just gonna say it right now. New Ghost in the Shell's debuting, I think today on Amazon. Excited for that. There were a bunch announced at Anime Expo. I'm not on top of all the new announcements actually with Anime Expo. I'm still behind on figuring out what's what. But yeah, no, there's a ton of great anime out there and manga. 100%. 100%. Nakamura isn't fantasy. That is true. It's not fantasy, but I do like it. Well, it's a fantasy for some people. I'll say that. And of course, you got Frieren and you got Delicious in Dungeon. Dungeon Meshi. There's a lot of good ones out there. Anyway, a lot of good stories out there. But yeah, that's all good. Man, back to this.
Means one camp wants stories to retain their original meanings as intended by their original creators, and the other camp wants to use all the stories as mechanisms to say something else. Now, I'm saying that...
So here's the problem with this description. It's very reductive. Very reductive to the actual discussions being held. Dungeon Meshi is my fave Tolkien race thing in the world. No, I hear you there. It's fantastic. Delicious in Dungeon's great. I may do a video at some point on it. Hey, Wave, thank you for 19 months. He's treating original works like the Bible. Yeah, he is. He's 100% doing that. He's treating it like it's the work that cannot be affected whatsoever by any means. But his description of the culture war is strange because it leaves out all the targeted harassment specifically delivered towards women. Oddly enough, isn't that strange how he's so whitewashing of the culture war there, isn't it?
The culture war is over, and I'll admit I'm being a bit hyperbolic. But what I mean by that is that not only is there no winner at present day, but also this is a battle that has no end in sight. There is never going to be a definitive winner for reasons we'll discuss shortly, but further, and more importantly, there is no winner because there is nothing worth battling over anymore. Every single major property, story, hero figure, every IP, every motivation, every possible plot point, everything has been defanged, declawed, neutered, tortured, and executed. And I know that sounds awful, and Wizard, you're blackpilling, but what I'm describing is that we stand upon the rubble of creativity. There is nothing left to fight for. And no...
Dude, just fucking watch Obsession. Just watch Obsession. Watch a horror movie. Stop watching just fantasy, just specifically this specific type of mainstream fantasy. Go outside your comfort zone for a second, all right? Just take a step outside of it. Take a step outside of the stuff you usually watch and watch anything else. Or read, for that matter, anything else. Like, Wizard, are you blackpilling? Yeah, you're fucking blackpilling, man. Jesus Christ. You just said yourself in your last video that Project Hail Mary's adaptation was a pretty good adaptation. How is it that nothing is worth celebrating if that exists? Hell, everything, if you're just so negative that everything is awful, everything's terrible, it's all unwatchable, that's such a bullshit excuse. That's such a defeatist, nonsensical excuse to avoid actually addressing the complicated idea that media is good sometimes, you know? And sometimes you don't like something because it sucks, and that's fine. Hell, another example, watch The Mighty Nine. Watch Vox Machina. That's some good stuff there, I think. My Adventure with Superman's pretty good. It's currently airing. X-Men 97. Pretty good cartoon. You know, beyond just anime, you know, books. Tons of good books coming out. Great year for horror. On top of the Backrooms and Obsession, you got Hokum. Really good.
At 000 Agent 88 super chatted $5. You know this guy would hate Obsession just because of the mild spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Implied demonic possession.
Yeah, no, he's done a couple horror videos. And actually what's funny is I am planning on responding to his horror-related videos. I was going to do it like back in June, but I keep delaying it because I want to like... There are other projects that are taking priority in my immediate mental space. But I'm going to make a video that is responding to his religious horror takes because I have a lot of thought on those. But yeah, no, it's just ridiculous. And it's not even a demon even in Obsession. It's more like the wish itself overtakes Nikki's brain, and it's the whole thing. But you would probably think Barry's the hero, most likely.
No matter how much you might dislike what Hollywood and Wall Street produce, regardless of the camp you find yourself in, there is no denying that what we're fighting over now is crumbs. No matter how many hundreds of millions of dollars Hollywood and Wall Street lose catering to the institutions, another reboot will be made. Another sequel for another day. Another remake, reshoot, retelling meant to reestablish relevance, restore reputations, and rehabilitate broken brands while reassuring shareholders that reinvention will restore recognition. Superman didn't do well at the box office.
It made $100 million in profit. What are you talking about?
Supergirl is also not doing well at the box office. Man of Tomorrow will likely not do well at the box office, but there will be another one. There will always be another Super someday. And whether or not James Gunn is at the helm, it doesn't matter. There will always be another and another, and with each other, the story, world, culture, character, moral, and message that the original creators intended.
Oh, they've been on for 23 months, the guy 493. Thank you so much. Enough with the alliteration, fake wizard. Yeah, exactly. It's getting a little ridiculous, dude. Having a nice, eloquent style of presentation is not enough when your words are completely vapid. Here's the problem, too. The original creators. What was the intention of the original creators?
Is slowly and steadily washed away until Superman is not even Superman at all. He's just Super Fella now. A guy who happens to be super. And I hope I'm being clear that Superman is just an example of an infinite pattern.
Give an example of what you're talking about. That's the problem with all this. He's giving these like big, vague, broad statements and not giving a specific example. It's like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about?
Replace Superman with...
Like, Superman under James Gunn is closer to the comics than he was under Zack Snyder. By your own reference, it makes no sense because it's going in a different direction than what Zack Snyder did. And what Zack Snyder did was way removed from the comics, completely removed on a true thematic level. The problem is when you discuss media criticism like this, you got to be more specific. You got to hone in on a specific angle, a specific perspective on the matter. Yeah. And again, like some of the greatest, I don't know, man, it just seems ridiculous. I don't know. Yeah, even then talking about financial depictions. Yeah. So we're not allowed to point this out. Like some of the best the best and most important movies of our time was made with commercial failures. Yeah, exactly. I think of often how E.T., The Thing, and Blade Runner all came out the same weekend. All great movies in their own respects, but Blade Runner and The Thing completely flopped. But nowadays, I hear more about Blade Runner and The Thing in pop conversation than E.T. Even though E.T. is an iconic film as well. Tons of movies did not make a ton of money when they came out, but still are successful. That's not indicative of anything. Yeah.
Any character or story you can think of, and it fits the same sad outcome. And so, well, why then? Why keep doing this? Why all the do-overs? And the constant fighting too. Like, why engage in a culture war willingly, especially to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars lost? Well, actually, you'd be asking all the wrong...
At Eustace Giwo super chatted $5. Even if you accept his stupid conceits, then the obvious conclusion should be, fine, I'll do myself. Not everything is ruined and forever, give up.
Yeah, exactly. In cases like this, we've seen this year alone some original IP get pushed through and be very successful, which has inspired Hollywood to just take IP that they're trying to do. The problem is the corporations try to corporatize everything. That's the big issue. Your big issue should be capitalism. But the culture war is not being fought by average people versus the big business guys. That's not what it is. The culture war are a bunch of entitled fanboys who don't want anything to change, getting mad at people for marketing to a larger demographic than themselves. It's about people being mad, the market shifts. and they're no longer catered to. Because these crowds of people who are so obsessed with things being perfect, the old way, they don't seem to care when you watch movies like Deathstalker. Deathstalker is pretty violent. You guys have seen Deathstalker? Fun movie. Absolute dog shit quality, but it's fun. And as a result of all that, what do you do? Where do you go from there? You know? What do you do?
Questions. You would be assuming any of this is being made for you. And it's not. Yeah, Superman is not for you. It's not for me either. We might be the customers with the wallets, but we're not the target audience. There is no culture war over your childhood, but there is a culture war over your children.
Is that just the same edit he did in the previous video? Was this just new text on it? That's the same fucking edit. Jesus
At
Christ.
Dagneth3 Artson 6121 super chatted $1.99. Movie Bob is so much better than Fake Wizard.
Well, because Movie Bob's specific. That's the difference. He makes a point quickly.
At Lupin the Maelstrom super chatted $2. Soups was the 10th highest grossing film in 25-man facepalming.
Yeah, domestically too. Where it made more percentage of money back.
At Majingojira super chatted $5. He can't criticize capitalism since he uses that to measure quality.
Yeah, that's the big issue too. If you're going to criticize capitalism, you can't really focus on that as your core metric of quality. Sorry. Now, I know in my last video I talked about film budgets and film profit, but that was to illustrate general popularity at the time of its release. Popularity is not quality. Because I would say that John Wick is better than a lot of the films that it made a lot less money than. Much better movie than some of the big bloated films that came out that year. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I think Smokey and the Bandit got, more money than The Godfather. Would never say Smokey and the Bandit's a better film than The Godfather.
Okay, so if the culture war on the surface is
Oh my
fought
God, it's the
over
same
what
fucking set
two
of
camps
edits.
of people envision as human values, well, deeper than that, the foundational core is actually what we pour into the next generation, whether people want to admit it or not. Well then, the best place...
Oh my God, he's recycling all of his edits. They're just all recycled. All of them.
At Tomo Show 7212 super chatted $10. It's always capitalism, yet they can never name it. Someone even fight back when you try to explain it to them. How so you reach these people? Not these grifters, but like regular people?
By doing what you can. On your own terms. That's the
At
only way of
Eustace
doing it.
Giwo super chatted $2. And now it's, oh, think of the children.
Exactly. He's mixing up his messaging there. It's, oh, they're trying to get the kids now. Oh no, they're trying to influence the children. Here's the problem with that, buddy. Every generation has to contend with the fact that the market will always shift to younger demographics. And that's fine. That's the nature of things. I'm sorry to say it, you know? We're not 17 anymore. We're not the demographic. It's fine. Get the fuck over it. You know? That's life. You get older. Shit happens. You know? Grow the fuck up. You have to accept the fact you're not going to be the target demographic being catered to forever. That's just life. And if it's fun, have fun with it. You know? Just enjoy it. The culture war, you know? It's this whole thing you make. I do not fight the culture war. I think I try to illustrate how stupid the culture war is. We are not engaging in the culture war here. Don't make that mistake. We are illustrating how dumb your entire culture war is and how ultimately it's a petty matter of stupidity. The entire culture war is fabricated. It's an astroturfed industry created by the fucking Epstein group. Yes. Thank you, Finn Ivo 3893. Member for 6 months. Thank you so much. I love this big conspiracy among the right that those CEO investors spent billions of dollars to spread a gay agenda or whatever they're afraid about. Yeah, exactly. It's so stupid. Because the reality simply is they want to make money. They want to make money, you know? They want to make your money. They want to take your money in their pockets. That's the only reason they do the shit they do. And they just do whatever it is they think is most marketable at that time so they can make the most money from you. That's all it fucking is.
At StonePhoenix7728 super chatted $4.49. Popularity or money isn't quality. Proof enough is the modern Doom games being amazing, yet half of ID gets fired.
Yeah, exactly. Look at modern gaming as an example. These games are fantastic and in many cases make money. And they still fire the guys working on them. And yet, guys like this will probably get mad at the game devs for putting ideas in, you know? The guys whose job it is to do the work without any thanks, and then the fans get mad at them as a result. What kind of bullshit is that? Hell, you want a great example of an IP that's very successful, original, creator-owned, and independent, and it still makes a lot of money? Deltarune! Deltarune is a fantastic IP. Chapter 5 just came out, and everyone's fucking talking about Deltarune. And Deltarune, by the way, is not a traditional story with traditional heroic values. Hell, I mean, Susie and Raziel, not at all traditional heroes. No. Hell, one's probably trans.
For us to start with this discussion, I think, is with a brief observation of the most recent pieces of media. June 26th, 2026 saw...
At Barney Nedward super chatted $4.99. We need to find some way to, at least in practice if not, actually on paper, outlaw Christian nationalism.
You can never do that. It's illegal to outlaw a religious group. That being said, though, they are hate groups that are Christian nationalist.
The release of the second film in James Gunn's DC superhero universe, Supergirl. The team who made this movie went on the record before it came out and called protagonist Kara Zor-El an anti-hero. The director said it. James Gunn confirmed it. The lead actress Millie Alcock said she hopes young girls walk away after seeing the film knowing it's okay to be, and I'm quoting her here, a bit bad and a bit messy. This film was marketed and positioned as empowerment for women, but also children, both little boys and little girls. Yet it sees Supergirl as a belligerent drunk and not actually being the anti-hero they claim.
At user_225_CCC super chatted $1.99. Imagine Kinkymation beefing with other spicy artists.
That'd be wild. Listen, Ralsei. Why am I saying Rossiel? Stupid. Ralsei. I'm thinking, you know what it is? I'm thinking? I watched this guy talk about God, and my mind goes to angel names. Stupid. There you go. Thank you, chat, for reminding me. Yeah, like here's the thing. Yeah, yeah. We're Not Alive is correct. It is the plot of Shrek, basically. He said that before too, belligerent drunk. Supergirl drinks in 2 scenes at the start of the film. Like, what do you mean isn't... I would argue that Supergirl isn't much of an anti-hero either, because she's not really anti. She just does heroic shit. You know? Like, she just does genuinely good stuff for people. I'd argue probably one of the bigger flaws of the film is that she's not an anti-hero enough, honestly. Also, she's not belligerently drunk. She's drunk, but is still functional and still does the right thing while drunk.
She would be, despite that being a whole separate issue, because Supergirl is not an anti-hero. Nah, see, it's worse than that. Millie Alcock's Supergirl is positioned as a hero in the film, and she's told that she needs to be good. Be good is a repeated phrase by multiple characters, and yet the film does not actually uphold or embody the very definition it uses for being good. And
okay, I'm sure you'll Explain that one.
They don't embody what being good means, because the uncomfortable truth is modern Hollywood doesn't believe in good or evil. Not
Oh, so you have no examples. Oh, so you have no example to prove your point. Oh, okay.
anymore, at least. This is actually a very serious position of argument in the culture war.
Wait. So you're not going to actually explain what happens in the film? How she saves a bunch of, sex slaves and, fights, tries to teach a girl not to succumb to the urges of revenge. That whole element of the movie. You're not going to discuss that? Oh, okay, that's fine. I mean, you have to actually watch Supergirl to know this, but, what are you going to do?
There is no good. There is no evil. Everything is now a kind of dangerous, sticky, morally gray. Nobody
That's a nice argument, Senator, but how would you back it up with a source?
is really a hero, and anyone who strives to embody the classic virtues of heroism is a punchline, a punching bag, laughed at and mocked, pissed on by the dog.
Hang on a second. So hang on. You can't say that when the caveat of Superman was just about a good guy being good. Superman's whole caveat was how he's just a good dude who does good things. You can't argue that these two things simultaneously exist. That Hollywood refuses to show what goodness is, while also talking about a franchise that ended its previous film, the first film in the series, with a guy giving a giant, unironic speech about just being a good person. And it just being like unironic and earnest and sincere. What are you talking about, dude? What the fuck are you talking about? None of this applies anywhere.
No. Classic morality is outdated and wrong. Superman sees the good in everyone, but I see the truth.
But then it's not outdated, because Superman did the exact same. Jesus Christ. This is so fucking stupid. Okay. If Superman had these themes in it, then it's not outdated, because they just did it last year.
Is a quote from Supergirl in the movie. You see,
Yes.
goodness and the
It is a quote that was in the trailers. Did you actually watch the movie? Because so far, everything you're citing is from press statements and the trailers. Did you actually watch the movies? Talk about the plot points from the movie that aren't in the trailers.
pursuit of goodness in one's real life are just bedtime stories you tell kids. The truth is for
At the guy 493 super chatted $2. Classical morality. Oh, that's a dog whistle.
Huge dog whistle. Huge dog whistle. Yeah, agreed.
grown-ups, and the truth is that nobody's really good underneath. It's all just appetite and damage, and the mature thing is to quit pretending otherwise, which
I bet this guy hates Berserk. I'm just putting it out there right now. I don't think he's a big Berserk fan.
is ironic, because while these writers think that they're able to extrapolate good and evil from their stories, replacing the heroes with Walter White derivatives of anti-hero, somehow they always leave in a little bit of pure, unadulterated evil. Supergirl is no different. Morally gray storytelling from
What evil then?
At
The bad guy, right?
Matchlock9636 super
Krem.
chatted $5. As a dabbler in the dark arts myself, I find his sullying of the word wizard offensive. Just like how I hate how Nazis wrap themselves in Norse myth.
That pisses me off to no end, how Nazis have totally stolen Norse iconography. So much of it. You just fucking have to reclaim all of it, I suppose. Anyway, back to this.
Hollywood has become a belief system. Because once you decide nothing is really good and nobody is really a hero, writing gets easier. You never have to defend a standard because you don't have one. You never have to make a character earn anything because there's nothing left to earn. And never risk.
What does earning have to do with morality? All characters have to earn something, otherwise there's no tension or conflict. A story where characters just get shit is not interesting, and it's a boring story. So what's your point? It's stupid. Stupid
At
argument.
DeVavalensky6327 super chatted $4.99. I just discovered your channel no more in a week ago. I really enjoy your content.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm glad you. I hope I keep making stuff you enjoy. That's my hope.
At Thinavo3893 super chatted $5. I don't know how he watched Supergirl and came out thinking this is morally gray story. Supergirl movie is as black and white as it get.
That's what I find so confusing about it. The movie's not particularly morally gray. Like, yeah, Supergirl says, "Oh, I see this," but her actions in the film prove otherwise. She goes out of her way to keep the girl from getting her revenge. Granted, the ending of the movie does change the story how the comic goes. But, like, even still, it's like your perspective is very skewed here. I don't understand what you're arguing about having seen the thing you're talking about. Like, the fact he's avoiding giving specifics that weren't in, by the way, the first trailer for the movie. I don't know. I think he's a tourist. I think he's just posing. I don't think he's actually seen the movie. Based purely on the descriptive terms here, and the fact his last video was made before Supergirl came out and he was talking about the plot of Supergirl.
At Kyle Merrill 4495 super chatted $2. Temu Gandalf lol.
Yeah, it's Temu Gandalf indeed. This is ridiculous so far.
Telling the audience something they
coming in.
At Majin Gojira super chatted $10. Christian fundamentalists, nationalists like this have to reframe everything as a clash of religions or moralities, so they can try to sell you their belief system.
Exactly. And yes, I do think he's LARPing about Supergirl, because if he wasn't LARPing, he'd give examples from the film that weren't in the trailers as like explicit stuff. You know, like talking about the final last act on Krem's ship where she saves a bunch of children kidnapped for sex work, for example. Or how one of her big reoccurring directions is to stop the main girl from trying to, whose name eludes me because I'm just tired, from getting revenge on Krem. This feels like a LARP. Because he's only really talking about the only movies across these two videos he's talked about so far in any explicit fashion that he could have seen is Rings of Power. That's it. Everything else is in vague terms.
At Matcherlock9636 super chatted $5. Also his costume sucks. Just grow a real beard and put baby powder in it. Also get a better hat, or don't. Gandalf wannabe tourist piece of junk.
Want to see a better hat? Hey, I got one for you. Hey, let's do this. There you go. That's my bad. I should have avoided this whole time. Got at the Ren Fair last year for like $5. Let's do it. Guys, doing the hat. Come on, let's do this. Get your hat on. This is so cringe, I'm sorry. But gotta do it. I should have worn this the whole fucking time. Honestly, when I do my video on his videos, I should wear this hat while doing it. Just saying. Should be done. It's probably dusty, though. I'm probably going to start breathing in dust from doing this dumb stunt. How dusty is this thing? Not dusty at all, actually. It's pretty good. Here, I'm going to do it. No, that looks weird. Okay, do it this way. And there we go. Close enough. Good enough. Looks good. Looks good enough on camera. Let's keep going.
they don't want to hear. Because the entire creed of morally gray boils down to everybody's a little bad. So just relax. And that's funny because the people...
No, not quite. Everyone's capable of good or evil. It's our choices that determine the outcome therein.
At Matcherlock9636 super chatted $2. At least it is authentic cringe.
Yeah, exactly. Genuine fun cringe. The kind we used to enjoy in our lives. Anyway.
People who tell you there's no such thing as good and bad are usually the people capable of doing the most bad. Okay, so...
Well, let's take a look at that. Michael Moorcock argued that in his fantasy works, the world didn't depend on good or evil, but rather order versus chaos. The battle between order and chaos, therefore, was between staticness and change. I think that the real-life fake wizard is not really describing good or evil so much as order versus chaos. That's my hot take for the day.
So that puts us in a position where we see what's being made today, right? Supergirl is just one of many remakes fitting the morally gray structure, but that puts us in a position where we need to roll it back.
Oh, so he's done talking about specifics of Supergirl now. Oh, okay, I see how it is.
And properly define what is goodness. Well, it's not a vibe. It's not a personality. Aristotle defined goodness around.
Remember when he was talking about the culture war? You remember that? I think I vaguely remember that.
340 BC as that which aligns with human flourishing, the pursuit of ultimate happiness, or the word he used, which was eudaimonia, living a life of purpose, meaning, and rational activity in accordance with virtue, rather than simply chasing temporary pleasure.
So, goodness in that sense is not so much anything valuable with anything. It's just making sure humanity survives. I wouldn't take that as necessarily the definition I'm going to run with, because that can be really dangerous of a mindset. Humanity's survival can sometimes result in people doing terribly cruel things to one another.
Firstly, evil, as noted later by Augustine and then Aquinas, is not necessarily
Aquinas. They always cite Aquinas. Second Story did that too, all the time.
an opposing force, at least not always. Evil is more of a deficiency or separation from goodness. Which means for you to be good requires active participation, choosing to do the right thing despite how hard it might be. And so that leads us to courage, right? You must actively be courageous in order to pursue goodness. It's not easy to do the right thing all the time. Being courageous is not the absence of fear, it's the choice to continue onward despite fear. Okay, so reframing, because this is a lot. One who pursues true goodness must pursue a life of purpose and meaning, and to accomplish that, you must be brave, all of which derives from the choices that you make. And those choices don't just mean action forward, they can also require restraint. See, cowards fail because they can't act, but brutes fail because they don't know when to stop. Someone who is pursuing...
What does any of this have to do with your point about the... I'm taking this hat off. It's too dusty. I'm not really a hat guy. Sorry.
At Stone Phoenix 7728 super chatted $2.99. Human survival is what defines goodness. Bro has never read a single Asimov story. OMG WTF is this?
Exactly. Not much science fiction in terms of the more cynical stuff for sure.
At Bernard_CK super chatted $5. If this guy stumbled upon the Fate Nasu franchise, I fear his brain might combust.
Can you imagine how you respond to fucking Fate? Fate Stay Night? Or Fate Zero? Yeah, no fucking way. No, but like here's the problem with all this. None of this has anything to do with his core point of the culture war. Like, I don't fucking know. Let's see. It's your man. Maybe he has some tenuous connection to the idea.
Goodness is standing in the gap of that. They can inflict damage, but choose not to instead. Well, that adds another layer to this. In order to pursue goodness, you must wrestle with the possibility of inflicting harm and or doing wrong. For example...
Okay. Oh my god. This is so painful.
At the Waverunner super chatted $5. Why is he playing music from famously known bisexual video game Fire Emblem Three Houses? Also, that game is almost all anti-heroes.
Exactly. The irony writes itself. He's criticizing Disney while playing Kingdom Hearts. He's talking about moral ambiguity and how it's bad while playing Fire Emblem music. It's like continually like its own self-parody. He's not aware that the musical choices he's choosing reflect, because they're fantasy music things, he wants to do that, but they reflect the greater concepts that he's criticizing against, but doesn't seem aware that he's doing that. It's wild, I think, quite wild.
A guard dog that bites everyone isn't good. A guard dog with no teeth isn't good either. The best guard dog is one that can tear the bad guy's arm off, but is capable of restraint. Having teeth is a requirement of being good. If you take their teeth away, or bringing it back to humans here, if you take away the ability to inflict harm, then there's nothing left to admire. You're just harmless. And if you are harmless, you cannot be all good. Because as we said, to be good means you must actively choose to do the right thing.
Okay, no. I'm going to have to stop you right there. No. I'm going to bring up one of the most kind characters in fiction who never hits anyone or tries to inflict harm. And I think for a bunch of you right now, some of you guys are going to go, oh, I love this character. And a bunch of you guys are going to go, oh, screw this character. Oh, wait, let's play a super chat.
At MatcherLock9636 super chatted $2. I wish we could react to people we actually like.
Indeed. Actually, it's very funny. Well, that was last week. We did Neuralities. Actually, it's very funny. This one image comes from a site called the Pure Good Wiki. So this character is a personification of pure good in fiction and never hurts anyone. You all ready for this?
At Nick Wolf 3885 super chatted $2. Wizard RN. Ergo. Vis-a-vis. Concordantly.
Exactly.
At Wing of Shoe super chatted $2. You shall not pass gas, this reject of a wizard.
Exactly.
At Eustace Giwo super chatted $5. To be fair, Aquinas Legmati demarks as intellectual or religiously inclined person can go without contending with some existential level of doubt.
This is very true. Okay, so for those who don't know, this is Toru Honda from Fruits Basket. She is a normal high school girl who becomes kind of engrossed in the Soma family, who is cursed to transform into the animals of the Chinese zodiac when hugged. All of these characters are dealing with deep psychological scars, and Toru herself is dealing with a lot of trauma as well. Her entire arc is about just being a kind person to those who she cares about deeply. And why this works so well is you see how difficult it is for her to make the choices she makes because the consequences are so difficult. But she's still a good person who refuses to ever do anything particularly dangerous, and she's not really capable of doing it either. She's going in way over her head on a constant basis with these abusive, terrible people who are like ruining these other characters' lives, and still tries to be kind
anyway.
At
Devavalensky 6327 super chatted $9.99. I love these right-wing reviewers. Making something out of nothing is hilarious to me. Like the Snow White remake. Who cares if Snow White is being played by a Latino woman?
Exactly. The movie has a lot more problems than that. There's tons of more problems with Snow White than that.
At Majin Gojira super chatted $5. He has big Christian youth pastor right now. In a bad way.
I haven't met too many good Christian youth pastors. I'm sure they exist, but I've not met them personally.
At MatcherLock9636 super chatted $5. Also a guard dog without teeth is still a dog. Thus they are a perfect kind creature of light love and a wonderful cuddly fluffy bringer of joy.
Well, the problem is that these guys can't see media outside the perspective of can someone inflict harm on someone, and not that there's alternate ways a character can communicate with the world, that they can resist becoming
cold. At Devavalensky
6327
super chatted $4.99. Seriously, getting mad about a movie that nobody cared to even see is hilarious to me.
And they're still mad about it. That's the problem. They get mad especially at the flops. Because, yeah, people don't want to see a movie that doesn't look good to them, for one reason or the other. I think Supergirl's biggest weakness is it was a very boring film to look at. I think that's really a big deal with how it grossed because the marketing of it is so essential. That's what gets butts in seats. If the film doesn't look appealing, people aren't going to go see it. I think a better visual direction would have helped the film a ton. I really do. Even if they don't change anything about the plot. But there was also a lot of confusion behind the scenes anyway. But yeah, no. So there's tons of fictional characters who are good people, who are just kind and good and don't hurt anyone, would never hurt anyone, or incapable of hurting people. And that's still good and brave because they're putting themselves at risk doing the right thing. That's what it means to be good. This discussion means you must choose to do the right thing. Yeah, you got to choose to do the right thing, but that doesn't mean you have to be able to fight. It doesn't mean you have to be dangerous. That's stupid.
Those who have swords and know how to use them, but keep them sheathed, will inherit the world. Goodness is not harmlessness. Goodness is power, aimed and controlled.
No, goodness is doing the right thing, even though it's hard. Choosing to do what is good versus what is easy. That is goodness. Goodness does not mean you don't need to have a sword to be good. Because sometimes standing up for something right without a way of defending yourself is actually more brave than anything else. Yeah, exactly.
And
There's a troll about? Oh, I see. Bye. Bye, dude. Once I've noticed you, you're gone. Sorry, man. Okay, that's fine. Back to this.
do you know one of the greatest characters in the last 100 years of fiction to exhibit these values of goodness happens to be none other than Superman himself? Yes, and I think it's best we take it back to 1938 with the invention of the character. Action Comics, dreamed up by two Jewish teenagers out of Cleveland, saw Superman as, quote, a champion of the oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
At MatcherLock9636 super chatted $2. The problem? Only genre these guys watch is action.
Exactly. But now we're getting to my territory of where I know a little bit about a little bit. I don't know everything about comic book history, but I can research. I don't know everything about movie history, but I can research. So I'm not expecting him to know everything about Superman's history, because who really does know? Unless you devote your life to really focusing in on that. But let's see what he says. Superman, champion of the oppressed. Yeah, that's true.
So that's our mission statement. Superman must be strong enough to fight oppression and also a champion of the people, as something worth looking up to or aspiring to be. Superman isn't good because he's strong. He's the strongest there is, and that's exactly why his goodness counts.
At Majin super chatted $5. To paraphrase, read some shoujo manga to develop some actual emotions.
Exactly. 100%. 100%.
This man could take the whole planet in an afternoon, and instead, he puts on a pair of glasses and works a job like a regular guy because he sees this planet as his home. It's a place worth fighting for, which means he chooses restraint every single day. And
okay, now you're losing me a little bit. Superman does not choose restraint every single day. He chooses to restrain in certain respects, but he's not really restraining himself because he's not really doing. There's the famous World of Cardboard speech from the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. Yes, that's in combat situations against opponents. Yes. But that's not the only respect in which Superman functions in the world.
And why? Why choose restraint? Why choose to become Clark Kent? Well, because he was raised by two people in Kansas who taught him the values of being good and, more so, being kind. Which also means that parents, or really parental figures, have that kind of impact on the next generation, you see? Our moral argument here is that the culture war is not just about what's here to entertain you and I, but what kind of beliefs and ideals we leave behind. For decades, writers have done versions of Superman where his ship lands in different places on Earth. What if Superman landed in Soviet Russia? What if he lands in medieval England or rural England? What if he's raised by the Wayne family and he becomes Batman? What if the US government gets him and locks him underground his whole life? See, every what if puts Superman in a position where his morals and ideals are all bent by the circumstances he's raised inside of. take the Kent family away from Kal-El, and he isn't raised to be Clark Kent, which means he isn't raised with love for humanity, which means he's far less inclined to show restraint when he uses his powers, because nobody ever showed him a reason worth restraining himself for. Same baby, same ship, same impossible strength, but you landed in a place that doesn't believe in goodness, and that child will have a much harder time learning about and finding goodness. And the sad part is that all of these Superman what-ifs that we just discussed aren't hypotheticals. We are doing an experiment with it right now, on purpose, with every child alive in the West. Because children don't only learn what's good from their mom and dad, they learn...
Wait a second, hang on. Did you actually read the comics you're talking about? Because in all of them, they emphasize that Clark Kent is capable of doing great good even under those different circumstances when he tries to. And the West is a big red flag too. I know what you mean. Also, what does you use James Gunn's Superman example, but James Gunn's Superman does exercise restraint deliberately, multiple times even. He restrains himself fighting a kaiju because he doesn't want the kaiju to die. He is constantly worried about doing the right thing and constantly bases himself off of the lessons that he believes his parents are instilling, only to later on realize the real morals he imbues and reflects are the values of his adoptive family, and he kind of honors them in his own actions later on. He could easily punch Lex Luthor in the face and send him flying if he really wanted to, but chooses not to. So, like, what are we doing here? Are you saying that kids are reading Red Sun Superman? Like, no, Injustice Superman, that's your better argument. That's your bigger betrayal of Superman's goodness. Injustice is a fun DC storyline, but I hate it as a Superman story because it just feels so antithetical to who Superman is. But the problem is you had a chance here to make a connection to James Gunn's movie, and you didn't because you just described what happens in James Gunn's movie. So by nature of the argument, you believe that James Gunn is reconstructing Superman to be a good person. Because in that movie, he does all the things you just said Superman was created to do. So what's your point?
From stories we hand them, from movies they watch, from games they play, from other children, from their educators, and from their extended families. Yes, children are a combination of all these things, but what happens to a generation when every story they're handed has decided that goodness and being good was a lie all along? What happens when kids aren't raised with Superman and they only get Super Fella? Well, you already know the answer. You raise a whole generation of Kal-Els who never got Kansas. So what exactly is...
Yeah, but the movie that we got with Superman was closer to the spirit of Superman you just described than the Zack Snyder Superman, which I noticed you neglected to mention even once in your discussion. That Superman is not raised to be kind. He's raised to hide his powers. And that goes against who Superman is as a character. It's the exact opposite of what James Gunn did, which was emphasize Superman's restraint. Every single thing you just used to describe Superman as an ideal can be applied to Superman under James Gunn, which, by the way, is more likely to be the Superman that kids grow up on than Red Sun or Flashpoint, all of which are stories from about 15 to 20 years ago.
Hollywood replacing Aristotle's eudaimonia with morally gray storytelling. Everything is morally gray. Everyone is compromised. And sure, morally gray storytelling can be engaging at times. Most people point to Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, as stories that are compelling as a means of being a North Star.
They're also not children's stories. You're talking about kids' stories. No kids watching The Sopranos.
Walter White is one of the most interesting characters of the century. Therefore, everything should mirror Walter White.
That's a bad idea for different reasons.
At Bob of the Old Ways super chatted $4.99. Red Sun Superman was still a good person.
Exactly.
Like, read it, Mr. Wizard.
Yeah, exactly. Red Sun showed that Superman, no matter where he goes, will still embody his ideas of truth and justice. I mean, is Red Sun as ethical as mainstream Superman? No. But even then, the statement to put the whole world in a bottle shakes him out of whatever funk he's in, you know? That's a major thing, that he's still a good man, no matter where he lands, because the goodness is inherent to Superman. Kal-El is just a good person, no matter where he falls. Now, if he said Injustice Superman, then he has an argument. Also more mainstream than Red Sun. But the problem is he's just not doing that. Gotta reread Red Sun. It's such a good story.
Isn't that right? Rings of Power? When used correctly, gray storytelling still knows that goodness is real, and it shows you the good with some pieces taken out. But Hollywood treats morally gray as a philosophy.
What does any of this have to do with the cult? What does anything you're saying have to do with your central thesis? You're just yapping and not making a concrete point about any of the pieces of media you're discussing. He's just yapping. He's just yapping. I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
Tool to elevate the
Super chat.
At Thinavo3893 super chatted $5. It is more interesting debate if he just admit he find James Gunn movies boring then move on instead of this BS philosophical pretentious stuff.
Exactly. Like, listen, I personally, my brain shuts off when I hear someone being like arrogant and pretentious. I had a conversation with someone recently and I was talking to them and you could tell this was a self-righteous little guy, you know, who thought himself higher than everyone else. And I just kind of go, yeah, sure, whatever, fuck you. Because that's how you react to people who are self-righteous and sanctimonious. Just say, fuck you, whatever. Because they're not really talking about what they're talking about. They can't anchor their ideas down to a specifics. They got to go in these abstract, big terms. But when they're talking out of their ass, they're talking out of their ass, you know? Because they don't have anything to say. When someone is being honest and earnest about a point, usually they can be specific. They can hone in on the specifics of what they're referring to. But he's not. Not yet. In any of his videos so far.
At Balthazar 228 super chatted $4.99. Technically kids in the late 90s were watching The Soprano in Conker's Bad Fur Day.
I was born in 1991. I didn't watch The Sopranos until I was in college, dude. That being said, though, Conker's Bad Fur Day, yes, that and South Park. Different examples there. If you said South Park, yeah, we're watching that. But Sopranos, not so much. Unless your parents were really cool.
Goodness and more like a religion, a belief system.
Or
As a
really
belief,
bad,
morally
depending on how you
gray
see it.
removes all definitions. See, earlier we spent time defining good and evil, that to pursue goodness requires active participation. Well, if everything is morally gray, then there is no goodness. Nobody is actually good and nobody is actually evil. People just do things. Some of them do nice things, some of them do terrible things. But
You're so not saying anything. You're not saying anything, dude. Say something more meaningful, all right? Say something remotely meaningful.
At Matcherlock9636 super chatted $2. He mistakes moral different from his with no moral.
Yeah. I guess he's not, yeah, you're right. He's not done with Star Wars. He just wants to get their sets to pose in, to look like, to fulfill his LARPing fantasy of being in a Star Wars story. And probably because he has the assets and want to recycle them. You know?
it all runs on one engine underneath, and that is, what did I want right then in that exact moment? It's a reductionist view of human beings, that everything we do is built on inherent desires and selfishness. We do as we want, because we can. Everything is preference and appetite. And as we said before, if nothing is really good and there aren't really heroes, then there is no standard to defend because you have no standards. There is nothing to earn, nothing really to overcome, because nobody set a bar anywhere for anyone to clear. Nobody has to be brave, since bravery was just a preference too. There's no hard right and no easy wrong. There's only the easy thing and the slightly less easy thing. And someone picking one over the other isn't a victory, it's just a mood. And what's interesting inside of this morally gray belief is how everyone points to Walter White as being
At Majin Gojira super chatted $2. This, Aristotle, needs a Diogenes.
100%. 100% agree with that. So, let me get back to my book here. I'm going to keep watching this video.
morally gray character. No, he's a villain. He's a bad guy. So is Tony Soprano. In Game of Thrones, almost everyone is villainous, and we find all of them interesting because bad people are interesting. A great villain is...
Okay, actually, I have a quote right here from, what was this, Robert McKee's story, right? The question of self-expression. And read this, guys. Open up page 237 of your volume of story. I'm sure you have it on your shelf right now. A storyteller puts a friendly arm around the audience, saying, "Let me show you something." He takes us to a scene, such as the one in Chinatown, and says, "Watch Gitz drive to Santa Monica, intent on arresting Evelyn. When he knocks on her door, do you think he'll be invited in? Watch this. Now the beautiful Evelyn comes downstairs, happy to see him. Think he'll soften and let her off the hook? Watch this. Next, she fights to protect her secret. Think she'll keep it in? Watch this. As he listens to her confession, will he help her or arrest her? Watch this. The storyteller leads us into expectation, makes us think we understand, then cracks open reality, creating surprise and curiosity, sending us back through his story again and again. On each trip back, we gain deeper and deeper insight into the natures of his characters and their world. A sudden awareness of the
At the Waverunner super chatted $2. Walt may not be morally gray, but Jesse sure is.
Exactly. This is story. Story is one of the big books they make you read when they want you to study critical theory about storytelling practices. The entire point is not necessarily to act as though you're being shown the moralities of good and evil for the first time. It's meant to tell you, hey, you want to see some cool shit? That's what a story is. Do you want to see some cool shit? That's all it is. Nothing else. Nothing more. Just that. And by understanding what that is, you understand the mechanics of narrative achievement.
At Mark M 1575 super chatted $2. Bro, gotta hit that word count for the essay.
You gotta hit that word count. I want a 500-word essay.
One of the best things a story can put in front of you. It just so happens that all of these stories have villains as the protagonists. There is no spectrum of grayness here.
Don't tell me what you think about Shakespeare and Macbeth, by the way. Shakespeare and Macbeth did the same fucking thing. That's basic storytelling. There's always been anti-heroes and villains and, tragic protagonists who have a great fall to their own hubris. Do you think Oedipus Rex was the hero of the story just because he was the hero of the Greek myth? No.
But look at what happens. If you take away good and evil from your story, then all that's left is bad guys. Let's go back to Supergirl, a film that dearly wants its protagonist.
Let's find out.
At Thinavo3893 super chatted $5. I got it. This isn't a rant on Superman. He just want to be mad at Breaking Bad and Anti-Heroes TV show.
He keeps complaining about Breaking Bad for some bizarre reason. Like, it's a pretty good show. Like, what's the issue here? Do you think everyone wants every character to be fucking Walter White? Like, no. Come on, man.
To exist in a world that is morally gray, and yet the villain is anything but morally gray. Krem of the Brigands is a representation of pure internet fantasy evil. The only thing missing on this guy was a mustache that he could twirl. He has child brides in cages.
Finally, talking about specifics of the movie. Good.
At the guy 493 super chatted $5. Man, watching an unhinged by Pink Alien review TMNT characters was a million times more interesting than this Wanabe Gandalf.
100%. Way more fun. Way more fun. Okay, so yeah, Krem is undeniably pure evil. He's also boring. He's a boring villain.
believes in eugenics. He's a bloodthirsty murderer, constantly seen on screen eating like an animal. So he's disgusting. He looks disgusting too. His men are also all disgusting. And there is no characterization, no depth, and no reason to see him as anything other than a checklist of everything a chronically online person thinks that evil looks like. Every box is ticked.
I would say chronically online. I think it's just general people think those are bad. You know, I don't think it's exclusive to chronically online people that sloppy eating is seen as shorthand for being gross in a film. That's not how it works. Krem's problem is he's bland because he's just raw evil. There's no humanity to the character. I'll give you an example of a movie that I was talking about just recently that humanizes its villains quite a lot, but effectively. Last House on the Left. I was talking about in my video I just put out. Last House on the Left is a deeply disturbing film, and it deeply humanizes its monstrous villains. We see them have bad dreams. We see them get into arguments and get into discussions and what the music they listen to and all that. It humanizes them to make them more monstrous to us, the audience, because they're vile characters. Krem is just not well written. That's the issue. Just in general, he's just all shorthand for being gross.
Ticked, every atrocity stacked until he's so irredeemably vile that the only moral response becomes to kill him. And that is like a tell in poker. A screenwriter who actually believed in the gray, who actually thought good and evil are childish concepts, wouldn't need to. She could write a complicated man, somebody whose actions you understand, even if you...
She could. This is a targeted attack at the screenwriter again.
Hate them is similar to the way Walter White works in the later seasons. Instead, she wrote a caricature of evil so...
Well, aren't we forgetting about someone else involved in this story? You see, yeah, she wrote that, but then again, Tom King
At
also
Eustace
approved
Giwo
it.
super chatted $5. Real Fake Wizard has a remarkable way of using many, many words to say very little. Brevity would better serve him.
Agreed. Brevity is the soul of wit, after all. Sorry.
At Mark M1575 super chatted $5. Wait, is he saying only chronically online people care about stopping sex traffickers?
Apparently so. I guess that's the implication. I mean, I'm sure it's just a mispronunciation of his, but still. Krem isn't Walter White, therefore something, and yeah, exactly. Like, Krem isn't Walter White. Krem's just a generic bad guy. And Tom King also wrote Krem as a boring villain. That's one of the big problems with the Woman of Tomorrow comic originally. Krem is just a bastard, and it's kind of boring, you know? They don't have much to work with there. Krem is the weakness of that book originally. On every version, the bad guy sucks because he's bland. But Krem's sucking doesn't change the ethical conflict of the story, which is whether or not the girl, whose name eludes me again, because I'm just blanking on her name, will go through with her revenge. In the graphic novel and the film, the conflict is, if you get revenge on this man, it will define you for the rest of your life. Graphic novel is a better resolution of this whole conflict, but that conflict is still present in the film itself as well.
Pure and so ugly that you never have to sit with the weight of the choice of mercy. Supergirl tortures and then executes this man guilt-free. And he...
No, she doesn't torture him. Also, it's a big deal in the film. She has no guilt about it because, you know, he fucked her dog. Fucked up her dog, I should say. But she doesn't torture him. Okay, spoiler alert for Supergirl. They get into a fight. He's knocked down after the fight. After, you know, fighting. It's a big combat scene. She hits him like once or twice, knocks him down. And then after convincing the main girl not to go through her revenge, and she goes off and does the right thing, she then just stabs him with a sword, and that's it. and then goes off because he's a danger to the world. He doesn't torture him. Like, that's just a lie. Like, unless you think every fight scene involving a character is torture, you know, It's a deception. You didn't watch the fucking movie, if that's your conclusion. She didn't torture him. The fuck you talking about?
At Thinavo3893 super chatted $5. What is his argument here? The movie is too black and white? He has this whole rant about morally gray, then complain about villain is too evil?
Exactly, especially when Supergirl does the right thing throughout the whole movie. She's not a belligerent drunk throughout the whole movie. It's only a couple scenes. She does the right thing continuously, and her whole actions in the film are in the defense of the innocent and vulnerable, trying to uphold good morals in people around her. What is your argument? It's not anchored in the film itself. I don't think you saw the fucking movie if you think Supergirl tortured Krem. Hell, Krem tortures Supergirl, quite frankly.
Here's what that means. The writer doesn't believe there's no good and evil. No, she believes it deeply enough to demand you see evil when she points it out. She just doesn't believe in the good anymore. But these writers, well, they believe in evil.
Okay, no. So the entire finale of Supergirl involves her finally putting on her outfit as Supergirl. The outfit exists because Kal-El gives it to her to illustrate who the good guys are. That's one of his quotes. Like, you wear this because you know who the good guy is. I know it's gaudy, but it's what the good guys wear. So that people know you're the good guy. Kara putting on the outfit in the third act is evidence of her embracing her identity as a good person, as an objective, ultimately moral person. So his read of the movie is just backwards and incorrect, and he's only getting away with it because he knows his audience didn't fucking watch the movie.
Plenty. Yeah, and it's a really nasty problem now. These writers don't believe in goodness, so when they're assigned a character or characters that embody goodness, they do things to them to change how audiences perceive those heroes. Sometimes it's by making them the butt of every joke.
Superman's not the butt of every joke. What the fuck are you talking about?
Sometimes it's by deconstructing them, but overall, this is one that's really key because you already have emotional attachments to those heroes from their past iterations. The changes that are being made in today's adaptations are not for you. They are to redefine how heroes are perceived by your children specifically. Masters of the Universe sees Adam as the absolute butt of every joke. Every moment that he starts to get agency, we see him pulled back down so the writers can say, no, you're He-Man. He-Man is stupid and embarrassing. We need to make sure the audience laughs at you and not with you.
Haven't seen He-Man yet in its entirety. I've seen clips online, so I can't speak to this whole thing.
His companion and mentor, Man-at-Arms, is reduced to a toxic masculinity.
Oh, here you go.
At Nick Wolf 3885 super chatted $5. Comic Krem at least had a complex about being a state king's agent and leaving his station to be a brigand. Movie Krem doesn't even have that going.
No. Movie Krem's boring. I think both were boring, but they did reduce the
At
interestness
Devavalensky
of,
6327 super chatted $4.99. Is this movie better than the original 80s Supergirl? I grew up with the 80s one and I didn't care for it. Compared to the other Superman movies.
There's no comparison. This new Supergirl movie is vastly better than the 80s Supergirl movie. I think the Supergirl movie is like a B- B movie. It's fine. Is it great? No, but it's good enough for a good enough time. I recommend when it comes on streaming, watch it. That's my advice. If you want to watch it, wait for streaming. I don't know if it's worth a movie ticket price, but it's fun. I think it's cool enough. It's good. Is it great? No, it's just all right. But it's not worth all this like hyper focusing on it. They get a little obsessive over it, I think, with their critiques of it. So I don't think it is necessarily a logical argument. I have no opinion on He-Man because I haven't seen it yet. So I'm just going to skip this because I can't wait around from the finished. Oh, it's almost done.
Masculinity talking point. A belligerent drunk who confesses that his daughter is the soldier he wishes he could have been. Toy Story 5 tells 4 stories in one that all converge at the end. One of which is the story with Buzz and Woody as they chase after Jessie. Well, Woody, despite being the main protagonist who walks down made or lost, these movies will keep getting produced, despite audiences begging for them to stop. And with each installment, less and less of what made the property great remains. And the reason to keep making installments is because it's not meant to capture you. You're not the customer. You already experienced real He-Man, real Buzz and Woody. You know the real Superman. You were there when the original story.
So again, his argument boils down to, you're not real fans of this media. It's for your children. They're coming for your kids. That's so fucking stupid. That's disingenuous bullshit, man. I hate that. Yeah, so ultimately he's paranoid about this whole thing. That's what it comes down to. This is like really pathetic, honestly.
Were told. What is being made now is to give your children a different worldview than what you have today. And you may say, Wizard, these are box office bombs. No one is seeing.
Toy Story 5 is a box office bomb? Okay, buddy.
These. Yes, that's true. But they are getting lots of views on streaming. And so whereas you had Luke...
Ah, there it goes. He admits it. He admits it. This whole time he's talking about how, oh no, these films aren't successful, but they're hits on streaming. Because that's when they get watched. So this whole time he's going off on like, oh, you know, no one's watching them, but he admits they are on streaming. So there you go.
Luke Skywalker, Indiana Jones, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men, Thundercats, Hercules, Tarzan, Frodo and Sam. Kids today have no original to measure against. Firstly, because they look at original Star Wars and they say, ew, that looks old. That's my mom and dad's movies. That's grandpa's movies. Yeah, that's number one. Everything has aged and kids are fickle, which means one side is coming to this culture war with a vulnerability, a hole in the armor. Stories of the past are bound to the past.
At MR Solar Sun 7174 super chatted $5. Anthony, would you consider making a proper video on this dude rather than a live stream?
Not just will I consider it, I've already scripted it. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. Don't worry. It's not coming soon, but in the next couple of months you'll see it.
And secondly, because what was made for the children of today is a feminized Buzz Lightyear. What's made for them
Jesus
is Superman
Christ.
getting mocked and...
They made Buzz Lightyear trans. They transed Buzz's gender. That's the fear. A feminized Buzz Lightyear. It's not manly enough for me. That means it must be feminized. As opposed to the first Toy Story when, you know, Buzz Lightyear dresses in a pink dress. Mrs. Nesbith. Sipping tea with Mrs. Nesbith, whatever it was.
At Dave Valensky 6327 super chatted $4.99. Where were these conservatives back in the 80s when Joe was trying to indoctrinate kids to join the military? Oh wait, never mind.
No, they like that part because it's not a feminized Buzz Lightyear. Also, kids watch the original Star Wars. Like, they just do. I know because I have a kid. I talk to people who have kids. Their parents show them the original Star Wars. And they've aged, but they're still loved. You know? They still watch them.
Belittled, and Woody getting mocked and belittled. He-Man is a joke. Lilo and Stitch made $1 billion in 2025 and saw Nani abandon the family for college. The aliens are bad guys. The whole found family arc of the original animated film has been destroyed in the remake. Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the greatest fantasy stories put to screen. Zuko's redemption arc is fantastic. Well, the live-action replacement, not remake, replacement, from Netflix, under...
Yeah, but no one likes it. There's like your other
At
video.
Balthazar 228 super chatted $4.99. Movies can't be bad for not understanding principles of storytelling. It must be because of the woke agenda.
Exactly. Also, what's strange with this part right here is this sounds like a part of the previous video script. Like, this is about adaptation. It's not about the culture. None of this is about
At
the fucking
Legendary
culture war,
Frog
by the way.
4880 super chatted $2. Aristotle sucks.
Yeah, Aristotle's overrated. None of this has anything to do with the culture war, by the way. We are 22 and a half minutes in, and we have not gotten to the actual crux of your argument.
At Majingojira super chatted $5. I showed my nephew, 6, King Kong, 1933, and he loved it.
Mm-hmm.
He never worked with kids in his life.
Never. Show a kid a Godzilla movie from the 60s, they love it. It's fun. Godzilla's cool. Show them Star Wars. Granted, the original Christopher Reeve Superman, that's a harder sell. I didn't like that as a kid as much as I did as a younger adult. Because as a kid, you're like, oh, where's the action? Where's he going to punch someone? I get that. But Star Wars, King Kong, those are classics. They're fun. They're different. I watched Universal monster films when I was a kid. You know, Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein. I was like 5 and 6. I love them.
Undermines everything that made the original great at every single level.
Yeah, and you know who left the project? The original series creators who decided to make more Avatar, and there's a movie coming out. It leaked online already, but it's coming out on streaming at the end of the month.
See, it's everything. It's everywhere. Not even Avatar from...
It's not even the first time a live-action adaptation fucked up Avatar. It's like a pattern at this point.
Nickelodeon.
At Balthazar 228 super chatted $4.99. How can he complain about adaptation when all his scripts are all adaptations of the same script?
Exactly.
THONKERS.
This feels so repetitive. I've heard his statements already. He keeps saying the same fucking thing in multiple videos. He has nothing else to say but the same goddamn point. I showed you 2 videos that came out back to back of his just now. And I'm going to tell you this. If I took a clip of any of these videos out and asked you to tell me which video it came from, you might not be able to tell if you forgot the specifics of what was going on. You had a little time pass, you couldn't tell. They're both undeniably the same video because they're both equally aimless.
Nickelodeon could survive. Every story of every time is on the table, just waiting for a hope-devoid writer to get their grubby hands on it. And because the kids have nothing to compare against, they don't feel the downgrade, because you can't miss a thing you never knew existed.
No, that's not true. When I was a kid watching Superman, I could tell which Superman movie was a good movie and which one sucked. I could tell the difference between Superman 1 and Superman 4. You're just not... You've never talked to kids before, and it's clear.
The emasculated versions of heroes don't feel like deflation because they never saw the peak.
They can just... It's all on streaming. You can just watch it. What the fuck are you talking about? Hell, why would you watch Toy Story 5, but not Toy Story 1? Do you think kids just skip Toy Stories 1 through 4? Come on.
For them, Superman getting pissed on by a dog is the base.
Are you under the impression the photo of Superman is, in fact, Superman?
Baseline. And it runs deeper than any single character because they're not just setting a child's idea of Buzz Lightyear or Superman or Luke Skywalker or Aang. They're setting the child's idea.
Do you know what's more disrespectful to Superman? Not him getting pissed on I have a photo of him pissed on by a dog. I think what's more disrespectful is having Superman say, debate with his father whether it's ethical to save a bus full of children being plummeted down into the water. Or him standing in the middle of an active war zone after like 1,000 9/11s and not having any feelings of sympathy towards the dead or dying. That, I feel, is a bigger disrespect to Superman's legacy than a dog peeing on the newspaper with Superman's photo on it. Just saying. Where is your complaint about Zack Snyder's Superman? Because it seems like you have only complaints about James Gunn, but not Zack Snyder, who did a lot more disrespectful stuff to the character than James Gunn did.
Idea of heroes period. Now consider what we said in part 1. If goodness is power aimed and controlled, then a hero is a dangerous thing that chooses.
Here we go.
At Balthazar 228 super chatted $1.99. Nuclear Man was a gem, only outclassed by Snowflam.
Destroy Superman.
Mercy.
Fucking love that.
If every
So
hero a
cheesy.
kid meets between ages 3 and 13 is an insecure, fumbling, bumbling, declawed idiot that must be apologized for, our hero quietly stops meaning the guy who learns to choose to be good. No, heroes are just jesters with superpowers, and at that point, all emotional attachment and meaning is lost. You don't have to teach a child to sneer at heroism. You just have to make sure they never once see the real thing, and then they themselves will.
What about Project Hail Mary? That's heroism right there. That came
At
out.
Zypher 8677 super chatted $2. It's true. J.J. Abrams made my TNG DVDs fade away.
That sounds like concerning. If he just jumped in and stole your DVDs or made them fade away magically from
At
remote
Tomo Show
distance.
7212 super chatted $5. He's acting as if the James Gunn Superman movie didn't happen and only the dog pissing on the picture scene happened.
Which isn't even from that movie. It's from another movie entirely, where they frame Superman as the ultimate force of good, as a kind person.
Not have any heroes to compare their own lives to. Nothing for them to aim at. What do you get on the other end of where there are no heroes? You get morally gray monsters. Augustine had a word for this 1600 years ago, and it's something we discussed before.
No, he didn't. Augustine. No, you mean 600 years ago, not 1600 years
At
ago.
Thinavo3893 super chatted $5. He act like story being recontextualized is a new thing. Star Wars prequel literally deconstruct Jedi. Hell old
Exactly.
man Luke was a Lucas ideas.
Yeah, but no, Augustine was from like the 14th century. 1600 years ago would have been during the Roman Empire, you moron. 1600 years ago? 600. Maybe, what exactly was Augustine? I think, when was Augustine alive? It was like, yeah, Augustine was, oh, no. Augustine was 600 years ago. I'm sorry. No, he's right. My mistake. I was thinking Aquinas. No, Augustine was 1600 years ago. I'm sorry. My mistake. That was 400 years. I'm mixing up my saints. My apologies. Yeah, I'm mixing up
At
Augustine
Bob of the
and,
Old Ways
Aquinas.
super
Yeah, that's my
chatted
problem.
$2. He's mixing up Augustine and Aquinas lol.
Wait. Actually, is he saying Augustine or Aquinas? Let me double check this. Hang on.
Where there are no heroes, you get morally gray monsters.
Make sure I'm not wrong.
Augustine had a word.
Augustine. He is saying Augustine. Okay, my apologies. Augustine was 350 was in the end of the Roman Empire. So that's different. Okay. So he's right. My apologies. He's right about that. About that one thing, he is correct.
For this 1600 years ago,
No,
and it's
he's
something
right.
we discussed before. Privation. Evil doesn't build. It doesn't need to. No, evil removes good and creates distance.
Just like what? Wait, no, hang on. That's didn't Aquinas talk about privation theory? Wait. Augustine talked about. No, Augustine did, but Aquinas, I thought, talked about privation theory. Whatever.
From goodness. So whether or not any writer or Hollywood executive drew any of this on a whiteboard or planned for this to be the outcome, it doesn't matter. The outcome here is the same whether planned or not. A whole generation is getting its template for courage and goodness and what a man is even allowed to be from writers who think the entire.
Okay, so you're slipping in some manosphere bullshit there along the way. They're talking about goodness and morals and masculinity. You know, it's like, come on, dude. You're not subtle. You're not slick. That's the problem.
entire concept of goodness is fraudulent. Be selfish. Because if you could be selfish, or if we can indoctrinate your children to be selfish, it allows us to get away with being selfish. Because the people to challenge the selfish aren't there to know that being selfish is antithetical to
Jesus Christ, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? What does any of this have to do with the culture war?
being good. Today's media is not being made for you. It is being made to erase you. At this point, I know many of you might find that what we've discussed here today seems hopeless and black.
It sounds stupid. You sound like a moron. I'm sorry, but like, nothing you're saying is tied in with reality. You're just rambling. You're rambling for a half hour.
And I know that because I read many of your comments. But I'd like to resolve our discussion here with a call to action. I said earlier that the culture war was over and that you lost. And it's because stories are being told today that dismantle the value of stories across all of human history. This is not going to stop. They are making hundreds more even right this very minute. It doesn't matter if you personally are not seeing them. Some people are. And if they're normies, they're walking away thinking they have a grasp on who Supergirl is.
God, you don't have a grasp of the movie yourself,
At the way
dude.
Runner super chatted $2. The Great Wizard Prager the morally gray.
Yeah, Prager the morally gray, exactly. Prager you the morally gray, yeah, exactly.
They see Rings of Power, and they think they understand Tolkien. They'll see the upcoming Narnia remake with a female Aslan the Lion.
Oh god, this again. He really only has like 5 examples to choose from every fucking time. Jesus Christ.
That takes place in the era of rock and roll from Greta Gerwig, and think they have a grasp on C.S. Lewis. It's never going to stop. So no, we lost the war, but the truth is we were never going to win that fight. They're too powerful. They own too much. We've given too many chances and too many freebies. The war over the studios, over Hollywood, over movies and TV and entertainment, over who gets to hold the pen on Superman this year, that war was never winnable, and it was never the war that actually mattered. I told you at the very beginning, there is no culture war over you. There is a culture war over your children. And that war rages on. And that's one that you could still win. And the fight is not out there. It's not in the comments section or the box office. It's in your house.
Is he really trying to encourage parents to indoctrinate their kids?
It's with your families, your nieces and nephews, your friends, your communities.
Is he really?
We spent this whole video proving one thing above all the rest. Superman is not Superman because of Krypton. He is Superman because of Kansas. Because 2 people on a farm bothered to raise a deity to be confident and kind. It's your job to be Kansas. It is up to you to be the Kent family for the next generation, for the current generation. We turn to entertainment as a means of finding values worth embodying in our own lives, and it is time to start living them today, to be there for each other. To be a better father, a better brother, better son, better mother, sister, daughter, a better friend. You know the truth. You lived it. You got the best versions of every story worth telling in our...
This is such slop, man. Dude, you're the one who knows everything. You're the specialist special boy.
At
Show your
Balthazar
kids old Star
228
Wars.
super chatted $1.99. There is no culture war in Ba Sing Se.
Okay, I'm done with this bullshit. Let's bring back a kind character. Let's bring up on screen. Listen, here's the ultimate point that if you take anything away from this is this. Yeah, they are objectively good things you can do for your kids. Show them good movies. Give them a good diet of media literacy. That's what I'm trying to do with my son. Or at least will do when he gets a little older. But the point is that don't be afraid of these new things. Actually engage with them. Discuss how they're different from the original. When I was a kid, I grew up with that. There were tons of adaptations. It was about discussing the differences with the original.
At Devavalensky 6327 super chatted $4.99. The only time I have agreed with conservative critics is the Karl Marx robot was annoying in the Han Solo movie.
Yes, yeah, that's a fair point, I think. I think that's a fair one.
At 000 Agent 88 super chatted $2. I skipped playing the new Doom DLC for this?
Oh yeah, you did. So, let me bring up something real quick. I got something for you all real quick. Just gonna duplicate tab. Cool. Let me go back to the stream real quick on this one. Cool. Got a couple small announcements to make. That'd be fun to discuss. Coming up this Thursday, I will be appearing on a different stream. Some naysayers in the comments, sure. There we go. Some fun stuff there. There we go. Fun stuff there. But right here, on Evasive stream this Thursday, I'll be showing up to discuss, to watch a movie. If you guys haven't seen yet, Evasive does some really fun stuff. Really great channel. Really good stuff. We're going to be watching a movie that's free on Tubi that you can watch with us. Specifically, the movie Grave Encounters. I cannot wait to force her to watch one of my favorite fun little cult movies. A lot of fun. We'll dive right in. That being said, beyond that, the usual thing going on. We have a video coming out this Friday, ideally, and a lot more we're going to be working on. So, it's going to be a lot of fun this week. We have a lot to do. But until all comes together, I will see you all next time. Take care. Goodbye.